Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Zamora two-player podcast. I am Garrett Zamora, and this for another Sidequest episode. I've actually invited the lovely Stephanie Stone to come and chat with me about, among other things, Elden Ring, because I really need to talk about that game after I've finished it. And Stephanie is also a cosplayer, which is why I reached out to her in the first place, because you have some fantastic Final Fantasy cosplays.
Thank you.
And those are always welcome on this podcast. My brother and I can't seem to get through an episode without talking about Final Fantasy in some capacity. You're also a content creator. You stream like 4 or 5 days a week generally on Twitch.
Yes.
And I found out when I was prepping for this episode that you are a critter, and I was like, well,
I am.
shit, I'm not going to be able to condense Critical Role talk into this episode. So we talked before, and we'll probably have you back on at some point to do like literally just a Critical Role episode start to finish at some point, because not many of my friends that watch it are caught up. So I can't talk about things with them, and it's a hard show to catch up on. When you fall behind. So I saw that and I was like very excited, but I was like, well, shit, I'm not going to be able to talk about that on this episode, but we'll for sure have you back for that at some point. But Stephanie, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Right on. So those who have watched my last Sidequest episode with Purpleschala might actually recognize you from one of her covers or her album covers. I think it was the Final Fantasy Solo Piano Volume 3, and it was your Tifa cosplay that she used for the album cover of that. And I think that's how I found you after like communicating with her a lot on Twitter and stuff. And then we were mutually following her or something. And I think that's how I ended up seeing one of your cosplays is that kind of cross-pollination with Purpleschala. So yeah, like I said, I mean, cosplay is a thing that like I love looking at, but am in no way, shape, or form skilled at doing. And so I really wanted to ask you to talk about some of your cosplays first, because I just find that it's such a fascinating hobby. Did you have... I know you just started catching up on 14. I don't know if you saw any of the 14 cosplays they had at FanFest last weekend. There was a huge lineup of them. I don't know if you had a chance to see any of those.
I've seen a couple because I have a lot of friends who are also into Final Fantasy 14. I was able to see a lot through my Instagram stories, a lot of people who had attended FanFest or were cosplaying their own Warriors of Light for FanFest. So I was able to see a bit of that. And I've also generally seen some really awesome Final Fantasy 14 throughout the years. My favorite cosplays from it that I've seen that I can kind of know that aren't spoilers are the Astrologian class, I think, has some of the most amazing cosplays that I've seen. That I know of anyways, dodging spoilers and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's the other thing, I guess, too, is like you might not want to watch all of them because a lot of them are like very important characters that you haven't seen yet. So you don't want to ruin that. So obviously the Final Fantasy cosplays are the thing that will catch my attention, because my brother and I are both massive Final Fantasy nerds, and we have been for decades, since we were like, in grade school. Some of which I wanted to point out, which I feel like, really caught my eye. So you have a lot of Tifa cosplays, so I can tell she's a favorite of yours.
Definitely, yes.
I think you have like OG Tifa, remake Tifa, and 2 out of the 3 dress options Tifa. Unless there's the third one too that I didn't see when I
have done like all 3 dress options. Like I have them and I've taken pictures, but I haven't done like an actual shoot because like the like 3 dress options I'd like purchased them pre-made and they didn't fit as well as I wanted. But what else have I done? I did like her original Wall Market outfit too, and I've also done her Crisis Core outfit as well. Well, not her Crisis outfit, sorry. Her Advent Children outfit, but I'm working on her Crisis Core outfit.
The the cowgirl one from
Yes, the
Chrysler.
cowgirl
Okay,
one. Yes.
yeah, as recently shown off in the Rebirth trailer.
Yes.
Okay, so I saw 2 out of 3, but yeah, I guess if you haven't done like a proper shoot of the third one, that makes
Mhm.
sense. But yeah, it was very clear that you have a love of for Tifa. So
Yes, definitely.
and I mean your work shows like those are very great high quality shoots that you did with those, and I really like those.
Thank
Um,
you.
to name a few other, Cisne from Crisis Core is
Yes.
like I missed Crisis Core originally, and I knew the story, and I think I even watched like the YouTube videos of like the story cutscenes and stuff, so I knew what happened. I just
Mhm.
never played it, so I kind of
Mhm.
forgot about Cisne because she's only I think in that game. I don't think she
Yes.
exists anywhere else.
No, it's
Um,
sad, it sucks.
well, and it was like, man, this character's great. Like, why don't we get more of her
Yeah.
when I played the reunion? And when I
Mhm.
saw yours, it's like dead on. It's such a good, like, perfection cosplay of her. You pulled that one off really well.
Thank you.
Aranea from 15 is a favorite of
Yes,
mine. I feel like she doesn't get
yes.
enough love. Uh,
Definitely not.
no,
She's great.
I'm also a sucker for dragoons. That's what I play
Yeah.
in 14, and that's like
Oh, nice.
I've always loved dragoons since like Final Fantasy 4.
Mm.
So when you throw a dragoon character in the game, I'm gonna just be it's gonna be one of my favorites. So I appreciate the
Mhm.
Aranea one. Um, Also, I'm a big Resident Evil nerd, and I saw your Ada
Oh,
Wong cosplay, which was
yep.
great. And I think it was like specifically the remake 2 Ada.
Yes,
Like the
I've done that
dress
one.
looked like more like
Mhm.
that. And I love Nier, and you got a 2B cosplay.
Oh, yes!
So
Yes.
you can see why I wanted to reach out to you and have you on, because like 90% of your cosplays are games that
Mhm.
I am obsessed with. So yeah, those are my favorite when I was looking through your kind of your profile of all your on Instagram and stuff.
Mhm.
So my first question I gotta ask anyone that's on here that is into cosplaying is like,
Mhm.
when was your first like very like full effort, not just like buying something like a wig or something, but like a
Mhm.
full like what was your first like full effort cosplay that you can remember that you did?
So I started cosplaying when I was, like, in middle school, so
Oh
it has been
wow.
a very long time for me,
Okay.
so, like, technically, my my efforts in middle school weren't, equivalent to, like, when I was older, because I did
Sure.
start cosplaying, like, in 2006, 2007
Okay.
was, like, kind of the first time I got together with, like, a friend and her mom who knew how to use a sewing machine and kinda taught us how to use it and, like, put some stuff together and, we would take pictures and stuff like that. I went to Anime Expo, but it really wasn't until I wanna say 2014 that after I was, like, out of high school and into college and, had access to a car and a
Sure.
job and
Yeah.
could really, like, put effort into it.
Important
Yeah,
important parts, yeah.
yeah, it wasn't until 2014 that I started, like, really getting into it, and, I think a lot of the world also sort of caught up a bit with cosplay because we didn't have a lot of, like, wig or colored contact options as well back in, like, 2006,
True.
2007,
Sure,
so
yeah.
with the way that the world was with those options in 2014, a lot of creating our own cosplays was a lot more accessible as well, so
Okay.
I would pitch it around either one of those 2 years depending on your definition of it.
Sure. But at least that's when you would like really like, plan out an entire like you said,
Yeah,
not just buying one thing online and wearing it like, hey, I'm this character.
no. Yeah.
Like really going all out. And yeah, I guess having a
Mhm.
job probably helps to get
Yes,
some of those materials.
definitely.
So that yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, you've been doing it for a while then. That's
Yes.
definitely and I mean I would say like even just judging from your pictures, like you seem very comfortable doing it.
Yes.
And so that I'm sure comes with having done it for years, right?
Mhm.
So it really shows in the work that you do. So yeah, they're everyone I saw was like that's again why I was like, well, I gotta have her on the podcast because she. I think every game we've ever talked about on this podcast, you have done a cosplay of almost. Um, so one thing, because this is because I don't know this world at all, like of cosplaying
Mhm.
and the techniques and whatever. Um, this is always fascinating to me. Which cosplay that can you remember that was like gave you unexpectedly the most trouble putting together? Whether it was just logistics or couldn't get the outfit to look right or couldn't get the material you needed,
Oh, man.
like any facet of that. And if you got a couple, I'd love to
I
hear it. Yeah,
I do have
absolutely.
a couple. I think probably the cosplay that was the most pain in the butt to wear, undoubtedly, hands down, was Muffet from Undertale, which is a cosplay most people haven't seen.
I don't think I
Um,
saw that one. Yeah.
I have, like, maybe 2 pictures of it total,
Okay.
um, and I wore it to one convention once, but that one was a huge pain. If you're unfamiliar with the character design, she's basically a spider.
Okay.
So I used mannequin arms and had to, like, drill them to,
Oh
like, a
wow.
board and had that harnessed to my body. She's also purple and, she has 8 eyes, so I also had to deal with body paint,
Yeah.
and I also had to wear sclera lenses, which are, like, larger than normal contact lenses that kind of it makes your eyes completely black.
Oh, okay.
And I'm wearing glasses.
Yeah.
Scleras don't come in prescription, so I was also, like, blind, I couldn't see anything. So, it was just, like, a lot. I had 4 arms, 2 on each side, in addition to my own arms, just sticking straight out,
Yeah.
carrying this heavy harness,
And not
face
made
paint
of
on,
foam or
couldn't
anything.
see.
Those are like
No.
heavy mannequin arms.
Yep. So, that was just a complete pain. That was such a bummer. I love the game Undertale, but that cosplay was just, like it was, like, a great idea, but just not. It was way too much trouble.
Yeah,
So
well,
there's that. Aranea was really, really hard to put together.
really.
Yeah, I
Her
have
outfit
only
definitely doesn't look like one solid piece.
no,
So
it's so
I can
many
imagine.
pieces. I'm not super, like, great at doing armor stuff,
Okay.
even though I'd like to be. So making her and wearing her was also just a lot. Um, but I did do her twice at least. I got my, like, nice photos of her, and I was like, "Okay, as much as I love her, this is it. This is all I'm doing with her.
Yeah,
I'll have
yeah.
nice photos and
You've
we'll call it
paid tribute, you've done your
Yes,
duty. Yeah, yeah. She's well
exactly.
represented in your profile. Yeah.
Yes, and then the last one I would say, was Ariadne, I think, or Adiane, that's her name. Adiane from Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann, which is an old Studio Gainax.
I think I know which. Yeah, I think I know
Yeah,
which one that
one
is.
of
Yeah.
one of the old ones. I cosplayed her, but I didn't really like how it turned out. Just one of
Okay.
those, like, it just didn't really work, which was
Sure.
sad, but yeah,
And
so a couple of those.
I feel like when you do that many cosplays, like there's just gonna be one that just doesn't
Yeah,
come together, as much
yeah,
as well as you'd like, right? So,
exactly.
I can imagine with how much work goes into it. Like it's got to be hard to like pick yourself up after one of those. I'm like, no, like the next one will be fine. Like this was
Yeah.
just a stumble or whatever, right?
Mhm.
And it's always funny. One part I love about cosplay is like you see the armor and the outfits and stuff like in game, and it just looks like what's the word, like it just exists, no problem, like they change in and
Yeah.
out of that every day, no issues,
Yeah,
whatever. And it's like when you see them in cosplay form, you're like, Jesus Christ, this is what they
yeah,
wear. It's
yep,
like it's I always find that so it's just funny to see it realized in like a physical form and be like, my
yes.
God, that is impractical.
Yes, that's definitely the Fire Emblem series.
Hmm.
There's I did a Fire Emblem Fates Conquest cosplay of Nyx, who's one
Okay.
of the characters. If
Yep.
you've played the game,
I
you
like
hopefully know
Fire
who
Emblem
she is.
too. Yep.
Yes. And her design, it was like the sort of thing where, you think they look cool, but then when you're translating the art to reality, you're like, "This doesn't make any sense."
Sure.
There's no feasible way, there's no, like, explanation for, like, what exactly you're looking at. You don't know, like, what it could possibly be made of, and you're just kind of like you just kinda have to figure out how you're gonna interpret that as best you can.
Right. Yeah, and it's like I don't know if it's maybe like a specific art styles of certain games just like translate easier to like figure out what an actual 3D version of this outfit would
Mhm.
be or whatever. But you wouldn't really know until you start like doing the work and realize like,
Yeah.
man, this makes zero sense at all.
Mhm. I do think, there are like, Square Enix, I think, is starting to kinda come up on that, like, people are cosplaying, and I think a couple other, companies are kinda starting to, like, realize how popular cosplays become because I've noticed that some companies in more recent years, like Final Fantasy 15, when I was working on Aranea, they've begun releasing
Yeah,
like
like
guides
cosplay
for
reference kits or
cosplay.
something, right?
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is so cool, but I
Yeah.
love that they do that. So I feel like when they're acknowledging things like that, they're also kind of like acknowledging, okay, we can't be super crazy and practical with our designs. If we want
Sure.
people to like dress up as their characters or like hire cosplayers to work at the booth, we have to kind of make it something that isn't like unrealistic to be wearing. We have
Right.
to kind of grind it into reality somehow.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've noticed that too. I've seen just like pictures of those like reference sheets and stuff that are like
Mhm.
official, like they're actually like
Yeah.
from like Square Enix or whatever.
Hmm.
And it it's always nice to see when they like, put a spotlight on it, like things
Yeah.
like at the 14 like fan fest. I don't
Hmm.
even think they did it in like a competition setting. It was just like, hey, if you have a cosplay or whatever, you just sign up and like everyone gets to go out and walk the runway or whatever.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, it's just fun to see them highlight those because I know
Hmm.
the amount of hours you guys put into some of those is just like staggering.
Yeah.
And all the tribulations you're talking about, like just some of them are just not easy to either put on or not comfortable to
Mhm.
live in.
Yeah.
So it's nice when they do at least one step to sort of bridge that gap
Mhm.
a little bit. Um, is there any cosplay that like you really want to do at some point, but you just like haven't either found the material or the technique or something that you just can't overcome?
Yeah, there's so many like that, honestly. Like Fang from Final Fantasy 13
Ooh,
is
yes.
I adore her. I love her so much,
Yep.
and I've been wanting to do her for forever. And I just haven't for some reason. I think like figuring out how I was gonna do her hair in a wig sense was something I was always kind of unsure about, but
Sure.
um there are wigs called lace front wigs that kind of mimic like a real hairline, and those are so much more commonly available these days. So it's little innovations like that that make the idea of finally approaching this cosplay much more approachable than it was in the past when these things weren't as easily available.
Right.
So there's things like that. I've always really wanted to do I forget the specific title of it, but there's a Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate armor set
Okay.
from that I've always wanted to do. But it's like a really intense like armor
Yeah.
cosplay,
Those ones
and
seem intimidating to do
they're
anything
very
from that game.
intimidating. Yeah, I feel like a lot of cosplayers, at least I don't know how much the cosplay scene has changed like in more recent years, but it felt like in the past a lot of the times people kind of fell more towards like they were more comfortable making cosplays out of fabric or they were making cosplays out of foam. And
Right.
then if you were lucky, you were someone who kind of had skills in both. And I'm
Sure.
definitely someone who leans more towards like fabric and maybe sometimes I'll do stuff with foam, but
Oh, okay, sure. And I feel like that skill set would probably help with Monster Hunter armor. Doing
yes,
the foam
definitely.
stuff would probably be a,
Yeah.
a, a valuable skill for those because
Oh,
their
definitely.
their armor gets crazy.
Yes, I was the one that I wanna do, I would wanna put, like, LEDs in it and everything, like, it would be a whole big thing, but I don't have any skills in that category and
Sure.
haven't developed any yet, but maybe one day, that's something
Sure.
I'll get around to.
Um yeah, the do you remember like what the name of like the monster set it is? Like I play a lot of Monster Hunter too.
Okay, it's a Stitch and Zinogre set. So, it's not like the regular Zinogre set that's, like
Okay.
you know how Zinogre sets are usually, like, blue, yellow, and, like, white?
Yep, yep.
So Stygian Zenogres are kind of like black and magenta,
Ooh,
so I
okay.
wanted to do one of those because Stygian Zenogre is my favorite monster, so
Okay.
I really
A-
wanted to do their
And that was
monster.
from 4 Ultimate?
Yes, which was
Okay.
on the 3DS.
Right. Oh, yes. Yeah, okay. I had that one. Yeah, okay. I didn't get super good on that version, so I don't think I ever saw that one, but
Uh,
I dived in head first when World came out like most people did.
World
And
was really great
yeah.
to be, like, accessible for people, so I'm
Yeah.
glad.
So yeah, I did that, and then Rise I played a crap load of as well. So yeah, I'm on board for World 2 whenever that wants to be
I
announced, you
know,
know?
yes. Hopefully that'll be the next one. We'll see.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, the Fang one, I would love to see that if you pull that one off. I love 13 so much.
Same.
And Fang is like definitely a standout character.
Mhm.
I feel like getting her like messy hair would be
Yeah.
hard.
She has, like, a specific, like, look.
Yeah.
It makes me think kind of like wolf-like because it's like a
Yeah.
weird mullet
Yes.
thing and very, like, wind tossed, and
Yeah, it's not
it's
like clean brushed. It's like
yeah,
pretty wild in some ways. Yeah, I feel like that'd be hard to
Charlie
do on a
yeah,
wig.
definitely, because it has to kinda, like, look wild and crazy, but not actually be tangled, so you kinda it's always tricky
Sure.
kind of manufacturing that sort of, like, messy but put together look. You kinda have to balance it.
Right. Yeah. God, it's like obviously when it's in the game, rendered in game, it's like, yeah,
Mhm.
that's just an asset that looks that way and
Yeah.
it always looks that way, no problem. And then to
Mhm.
like manufacture that, like you said, like make it look like it's messy, but it's actually like pristine,
Yes.
pristinely done. Yeah, that would be, I could see that being probably the tough part. Cause like, I don't think her outfit is like overly complicated, but I mean, this is a non
No,
cosplayer saying, but so
not
please tell me I'm wrong
super.
if I am.
It's not, like, crazy necessarily. It's the details on, like, what she has on her wrap are, like, a little complicated.
Right. Oh, yeah, she's got,
There's
like, designs and stuff or,
Yeah,
like
but it's like
yeah.
that's probably, like, I mean, I don't remember her design off the top of my head, but that's something that I remember specifically being like, figuring out how to make that design would probably be the hard part, but it's not like a complex construction because I think it's just like a length of fabric, so
Right.
that's, like, good. The only issue then would just be figuring out how to make the fabric be, like, accurate to the game, and
Right.
then you don't have to necessarily worry about, like, "How am I gonna make this weird looking piece of," like the shirt or jacket. It's just like fabric that you would wrap around your body a specific way, but
Right.
then there's her lance, which I would also love to make, and that's a whole other
Yeah,
ballpark is
yeah,
making the weapon to go with it, so
man, when I see those and I like, not just 14, but that's just in my head because it was so recent. Some of
Mhm.
those cosplays that came out with the really articulate
Yeah.
weapon, weapon props and stuff. It's like,
Mhm.
my God, that must be both annoying to make and annoying to carry around with you.
Yes, they
Uh,
definitely are, and, I'm sure for everyone that flew in for FanFest,
yeah.
I have no idea how people managed to pack those things for TSA,
Do they
because it's
do
one
they
thing
like
to, like,
ship them ahead of time and like
some people do. I know that a lot of the time people have to look into like oversized storage. People talk about getting I mean a lot of it is like you plan to make your props break down into 2 or 3 or more
mm,
pieces to make it easier
right.
for travel. You can put them in boxes, which can be kind of risky if they get, thrown around. I've also heard that people will purchase like surfboard cases to
Okay.
like put their stuff in or, like, traveling, like, golf bags.
Okay.
I've heard of all sorts of, like, sports equipment basically that people would, like, pack
Right.
their armor in and just, like,
Yeah,
pray,
that's pretty
wrap it up
smart
and
actually. Yeah, I wouldn't have
yeah,
thought of that.
to travel with it. It's pricey, but
Yeah.
it's doable and it's an option to take the things that people have worked on with them.
Yeah. Yeah, you're always worried about it getting, banged up or whatever.
Yeah.
Which congrats on you for picking Tifa then.
Oh,
You don't have to do any
yes.
weapon.
That's another huge benefit is, like, there's no, like, big prop. It's not like a Buster Sword or, like, Barrett's
Yeah.
Run where I have to worry about it. I just have my fist. That's it. That's nice
Yeah.
and
You
easy.
got your
That goes
gloves.
into wherever I am, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that works out. That definitely works in your favor then, yeah.
Mhm.
Awesome. I absolutely loved hearing about cosplay stuff. I will please ping me when if you do the Fang one at some point because I'm
I
such
will.
a nerd for FF13. I have like 4 lightning posters in my apartment that I can
Oh, I
see.
love that.
Yeah, so
He's
I'm a
great.
I'm a big advocate of 13. So yeah, I'll for sure check out that Fang cosplay if you do that. That would be amazing. Um, Okay, let's get to the good stuff. Let's get into
Ah,
Elden Ring. So here's a little backstory for me is so I obviously like just finished it. Like I just went through maybe when I reached out to you, I like had just finished
Okay.
it. So it was like 2 weeks ago or something.
Yeah.
Um, and so I was late to getting to it. And
That's
it's
okay.
yeah, first yeah, and it's like it's not like I was avoiding it specifically. It definitely
Mhm.
came out when other stuff was out that I wanted to play, and so I just kind of like, and from soft games, I'm generally okay not playing them immediately so that I
Mhm.
can get help figuring out
That's
where to
smart.
go or what to
Yeah.
do from people that know stuff already.
Mhm.
And I'm also not a person who watches Game of Thrones, so having
Okay.
George R. Martin attached to it didn't have me like salivating for it. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
I was okay waiting until eventually I was just like, well, when it's on sale and
Yeah.
I'm not in the middle of a big, because I'm just a person who like goes from like game to game to game. Like I always have another
Yeah.
game waiting for me. Basically,
Mhm.
it's like it's just my hobby or whatever, right? So I needed like a good carved out amount of time because I know it's big. Like I knew it was a big
Yeah.
game, and so I needed a carved out amount, chunk of time when I
Mhm.
could okay, like give it the sufficient time that I know I would want to. And I think it was like the Steam summer sale or whatever
Ah,
recently. It was like 30 some percent off. So I was like, okay, I literally just finished Final Fantasy 16, like platinum done. I literally did
okay.
all of it. And then it was like literally like 2 or 3 days later, Elden Ring on sale. I was like, okay, here we go.
It's a sign.
Yeah. Because my next like game coming up was Armored Core, which is later this month, but it was
Mhm.
like a good month and a half in between.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I can finally jump in now, both feet. And so yeah, you know, that's the reason why I was late to the party. It's
Mhm.
just like it never was a good. I never had enough time that I wanted to dedicate to it.
Mhm.
But man, once I dived in, I was like every day. That's all I wanted to do. It was so hard. And it's one of those games. I don't know if how much. I don't know if we've talked about like Zelda or anything. I don't know if you play much.
I do.
Okay.
I'm I'm a big Zelda fan. I've been
Ah,
playing that for as long as I can remember. I grew up on, like, Ocarina of Time was my first ever game I played on Nintendo
okay.
64,
Man,
so big Zelda fan.
you fit in very well here. So I'm a huge Zelda nerd myself, and it gave like I love Breath of the Wild so much, and
Mhm.
um, it gave me that same sensation
Yes.
of like, ooh, what's over there? Ooh, what's over there? Oh, what's over there? And
Mhm.
it does it in such a good way. Um, and one reason I was a little hesitant, I think you may have mentioned something like this on stream when we were
Mhm.
briefly talking about it. Uh, one hesitation I had is like, I don't know that I want a Dark Souls game in an open world setting.
Yes.
It was like, it just, I saw the, the previews and stuff, and I was like,
Mhm.
for me, it's like, when I play a Dark Souls game, I'm stressed all the time. The further I get away from the bonfire, the more
Yes.
anxiety I
There's, like,
have.
a direct chart correlation
Yeah,
of, like, distance from the
exactly.
last
Yeah,
bonfire and stress
distance and
levels.
stress.
Yep.
Yeah. And so I was like, I don't think I would like that in an open world
Mhm.
setting because I would just be stressed all the time, right?
Yeah.
And so that was one of my sort of reasons why I wasn't like I was kind of kept it at arm's length a little bit.
Mhm.
But as we'll discuss, they do a lot of things that alleviate that,
Yes.
which made it made me kind of embrace that exploration sort of feel a little more. Um, First, I want to just briefly talk about so as far as FromSoft games go, I think you said Sekiro was your first FromSoft
Yes.
game.
Yes. So FromSoft games are always like a little funny to me because my dad is a huge gamer.
Okay.
That's also why, like I mentioned with Zelda, I've been playing Ocarina of Time since the Nintendo 64 because my dad really wanted the new Zelda game when it came out. So by extension, I also played video games growing up.
Right.
And when the very first Demon Souls came out,
Yeah.
my dad was on top of that and he was like, "This game is so good, you should play it." And back then, I think that was like before I got into horror games or anything, and I was like, I don't know, this game looks kind of scary. There's like a lot of it's really dark, like you're fighting
Yeah.
undead things. I don't know.
Sure.
And and then all the other games came out. So eventually I don't remember what it was exactly, but with Sekiro, I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna try this game. It's a FromSoft game. I hear they're really hard. This one had sort of recently come out. I think it had also gotten Game of the Year
I
at
think
that
so.
point.
I think
I'm
so,
not
yeah.
sure if I started when it had Game of the Year or
Oh,
not.
sure, yeah. I know it
Um,
definitely won Game of the Year,
but
but
it
it depends when you
did definitely
started.
win one.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't remember if I started before or after that, but I decided to try out that game.
Mhm.
So that was my first exposure to a FromSoft game. And no FromSoft game has ever whooped my butt as much as Sekiro did. I'm not sure what it is about Sekiro, but like
I I honestly
nothing.
I think of because I've played well now that Demon Souls got remade, I played that one. So I played
Mhm,
all the Souls born games.
mhm.
And I honestly think that one tripped me up the
Yeah,
longest. Maybe except until now with Elden Ring, because there's one or two bosses that I was stuck on for a long time. But
yeah,
in general, start to finish, and I think that was
mhm,
the consensus. Is like Sekiro was like it's really hard,
yeah,
and it's because you have to, probably because you like have to parry. You can't just
yes,
turtle and block and
yeah,
you know what I mean? And that's probably
mhm,
why, like, you have to play more aggressive. It's more close to
yeah,
Bloodborne in terms
yes,
of that sort of aggressive style play you have
yeah,
to do, but I feel like that is also harder to do
mhm,
well,
yeah,
you know, for a long
yeah.
period of time.
It definitely really humbled me coming into the franchise. I was afraid of everything playing Sekiro. I was consistently stuck on some bosses for like 5 hours
Yeah.
repeatedly, and it was
Yes.
just I was so stressed. And so after that, I went the Demon Souls remake came out. So then
Yep.
I was like, okay, well then perfect. I'm gonna now do the Souls games in
Yep.
order. And Demon Souls I didn't find like as difficult as Sekiro. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe I've just gotten so beat up by Sekiro that
Yeah.
now I can like take anything.
Yeah.
Um, and then from there I moved on to Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, Bloodborne,
Yeah.
Dark Souls 3, then Elden Ring.
Okay, so you did them in like release order essentially,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
And yeah, Demon Souls. I was just playing a little bit of it recently because like I just wanted more FromSoft, stuff,
Yeah.
and the Demon Souls remake just looks so good.
It does.
So I've been playing that, and like the difficulty of that game is in its jank. It is not that the
Yeah.
combat itself is overly
Mhm,
hard. It's just like really weird level design sometimes, and like
mhm.
confusing where to go and how the game progresses properly. So a lot
Yeah.
of that game's difficulty is just in its weird construction.
Mhm,
And so I think if you can master Sekiro, like the
yeah.
combat in that game would be almost easy by comparison.
Mhm.
Save for like a couple bosses that are tricky or whatever. But yeah, it's that you definitely went down the difficulty curve for
Yeah,
sure.
it felt
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah. So for me, it was so the Dark Souls when it came on PC.
Mhm.
Um, so I used to stream a lot. This is like God, like 10 years ago now.
Oh.
But I would stream like through 4 or 5 days a week, whatever, like after work and
Mhm.
stuff. And one of my friends, I got really mad at. I don't remember what game it was. It was some really dumb game that you should not get mad at. I think it was like It was like Banjo Kazooie or
Oh,
something.
but those old games do get really frustrating
Well,
though. Like,
thank
sometimes
you.
the platforming that they, like, have you do is, like or, like, certain enemies, it can definitely get frustrating.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you. That
Yeah.
validates me a little bit. And so like I'm pretty sure it was that game where he was laughing at how mad I was getting.
Mhm.
And he's like, "Man, you should play Dark Souls." And I was like, I kind of had this. I knew what it was. I knew it was super
Mhm.
hard, but like
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I could. Like, I don't think I could do that. And I think it
Mhm.
was like I don't know if it was my. I don't think it was my birthday because it was in the summer, but he like just bought it for me and gifted it to me
Oh.
on Steam. And he's like, I will buy you this, but you must stream every moment of it."
Oh, boy.
And so it was like I think I did it like that was like my weekend stream game. It was like Saturday and Sundays. I would just play Dark Souls all day. And shout out to Reese if he is watching this episode. He would like hang out in my chat and like tell me where to go because one thing I don't play FromSoft games for is their story and their lore, because I
Yeah.
do not understand any of it. I play it for the gameplay and like the, combat. I really love the way those games feel to play, and that's why I play them. So I was like, Reese, where do I go? Just point me in the direction. And so he just kind of like guided me through that game, pointing me where to go. And that was my first. And I beat it. I did the whole thing on stream. It probably took like 2 or 3 months because I was only doing it like Saturdays and Sundays. And it took a long time. I think that one was the Ornstein and Smog fight.
Yes,
That
Dark
was,
Souls 1.
yeah, that was like probably 2 weekends of like 2-day streams that I just could not get it. And then that was my first real taste of like that rush you get when you do like
when you finally beat that hard boss.
Yeah, that was like, I get it. I know why people play these games now.
That's really the hook, I feel.
It
like,
is 100%.
A lot of people feel like it's so difficult, but it's so unparalleled. When you hit your first wall, and then when you surpass that wall is the greatest feeling.
And it's like, I mean, they got it down to a science at this point where, like, if you do the fight like 3 or 4 times, save for fights that have like a transformation or a really big second phase or something, it's like you get all the information in those first couple attempts. So you know what this boss does now. So then it's just, you got to look for the tells and the patterns and when you can punish and attack, and and so it's all just that constant like feedback loop that you're just and it's like, it's just, it's unmatched. No other game, other games try to do it, especially nowadays. Like a lot of games try to emulate that. And some of them get close, but it just nothing matches the feeling that FromSoft gives me when I'm stuck on a boss for like 7 hours and I finally, finally clear it.
Yes.
So once I did that, I think I bought Dark Souls 2 on Steam. And then this was all before Dark Souls 3 had come out. So when that came out, I got that one actually pretty early because I just had fairly recently done those 2 games before it. So I was like really excited for it because I was in the Dark Souls train now.
Yeah.
I got that. I think I don't remember when I played Bloodborne. Bloodborne came out before Dark Souls 3, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because that was early PS4. So I had played that as well. And then I think I went back to Bloodborne after. Yeah, because I definitely went Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, like pretty close together. And I think I got like Bloodborne for my birthday later that year or something. But played that. I've only beaten Bloodborne once. I loved it, but like that game gets real hard towards the end, and I just have never been able to like go back and like punish myself again to go through that end bit again. But I love it. I absolutely love Bloodborne. But that's why I feel like that and Sekiro are close in terms of like just combat difficulty, because you can't. Because I usually, when I play like Dark Souls, I'm like, give me a shield and I'm gonna block a lot. I'm one of those types of like builds or whatever. So, but love those feelings. And then so fast forward to now, because I also played Sekiro a little while after it had come out as well. But now on to Elden Ring. Even though I took forever to get to it, man, I put like 110 hours in that game in like 2 weeks or something while working a full-time job. Dang. I just like couldn't stop playing it.
It is really good. I only played it on stream for the most part. I think I can actually check how many hours I clocked real quick. But it took me like about a year to play, I want to say. It took me a long time. I've clocked like 133 stream hours basically on Elden Ring. But and I only play games once a week. Right. So there was also that too, where so it took me forever to like get through the game. And like as you mentioned, like the story in these games, like they make you really work for it. You have to talk to all the NPCs, you have to exhaust their dialogue, and you have to be looking at like everything.
Every tooltip on every description.
And kind of piece things together. So I started keeping like a journal too, and like writing down.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah, that's so cool.
all the information the NPCs would give me and like certain things that were important. It helped a lot because since I was streaming this game, people in chat,
Yeah.
at this point, because I've been on like my long like FromSoft journey, I had like my FromSoft regulars too, who kind of
Sure,
like
yeah.
knew things, who would kind of help like nudge me in the right direction to
Yep.
piece some things together. But there were definitely some moments in Elden Ring where I kind of like pieced together what exactly they were alluding to in the storyline too. That was
Okay.
really exciting because I was like, wow, I figured out something that's going on in the story before they tell me, which was like a huge achievement to me personally because, you know, the game's not very forthcoming about
No.
all of this stuff. So
Yeah, well,
that
like
was
you said, they make you work for it for sure.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah, so to be able to like piece that together on your own,
Mhm.
yeah, props to you because I sure cannot. I don't know what the hell's going on in
Yeah.
those games.
It's a lot. I mean, I had so many notes, but
Yeah,
it's I do love the story a lot, especially, you know, after beating the game and going to, you know, like
exactly.
watching videos, lore videos and
Yeah.
making sure I know everything and didn't miss anything.
Yeah,
So,
it's I should clarify too. It's like it's nothing against the quality of the lore at all. It's just I'm
mhm.
dumb and I don't understand it unless you're spoon feeding me the lore piece
Really
by piece.
they really make you work for it too. Like it's
Yeah,
not like and if you miss like an interaction too, sometimes it's like if it's an important interaction, you're missing like a vital piece of information that provides context for like things moving forward too. So
right.
it's definitely hard to keep track of the things that are going on.
Yeah. Especially in a more like omnidirectional game like Elden Ring. I feel like the journal, that's such a cool idea. That's such a man, that would have been helpful for sure, especially where you're playing it over a longer period of time, right? Because you'd forget stuff, but
Yeah.
by the next week or whatever, right? So, yeah, that's a really good idea. That's like old school gaming. You know what I mean? Like you got your like graph papers and drawing maps and stuff. Like taking all the lore. Um, so with as I was alluding to earlier, like just like playing Elden Ring in general, some of those apprehensions I had about being an open world Souls game or whatever. Small things
Mhm.
they do, which is such just smart game design, I find, is like the way they'll like I don't remember the exact rule for it, but it's like if you clear out like an area or a group of enemies or something, it will like
Mhm.
refill your flask by one or two
Yeah.
charges or something like
I
that.
forgot that was even a function. But yes, it's like it's
Yeah.
like it is really forgiving, but it's so good. It is like when the enemies are considered like a unit, but when you
Yeah.
do clear out that unit, they do give you another charge of your flashback, which
Right.
is so nice. And
Yeah.
I play a very meticulous way where I'm like a little Luke Gremlin, so I'm checking
Sure.
every corner looking for any sort of shiny little item I can
Yeah.
take.
Yeah.
I'm also methodically clearing out all of the rooms too, so that was a really great function.
Yeah. And it was like that was the first point where like that sort of apprehension I had just started to like melt away a little bit when I read that. And I was like, oh, and I was like, I think I understood what that meant. And I killed some
Mhm.
enemies and saw the charge, and I was like, oh, I was like, this is not gonna be as bad as I thought.
Yeah, it's
Um,
definitely very nice.
it just like helps encourage the like the exploration aspect
Yes.
of the game too, right? Um, with so the other thing about it that it's like made me realize like, oh, this is why this game can work as like sort of an open-ended game is, once I got over the recharging flask, once that sort of happened and I was on board with that, is like if you wander into some boss that's just
Mhm.
dummying you, and
Yeah.
it's like I feel like when you take on a boss, you're like, okay, let me just hit him a few times and see how much
Mhm.
like
Damage
damage I
that
do.
you could possibly do, yep.
Yeah, let me see if this is like even doable. And if I hit
Yes,
him a bunch of times
exactly.
and it's like this much, I'm like, okay, I'm
Maybe
not
not.
ready for this.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like if you hit that point, which it can
Mhm.
happen easily because you might be going in a direction where things are stronger than where you're expected to be going or whatever. It just gives you that open-ended like, oh well, I don't have to bash my head against this boss for 7 hours. I can
Yeah.
go explore this other, castle over here for 3 days, and then I'll come back when I have more, levels or whatever.
Mhm.
And it's like when those two things sort of clicked into place for me, is like that's when I was like, okay, I want to play this game all day, every day. It's
Yeah.
like it really like clicked in when because those like literally were the two things that alleviated my fear of an open world style Souls game
Yes.
because it really like and you still get some of that anxiety obviously like but it's
Mhm.
like the good kind like
Yeah.
it's like that tension or whatever that
Yes.
you build while you're playing, right?
Yeah. I definitely do think that they balanced it pretty well, and I will also add, the America statues as additional
Yes.
respawn points
Yes.
was super clutch as well. I
Yeah.
definitely had a lot of dungeons where I would clear them, and then I would fight the boss and then die, and I'd be like, "Oh my god, do I have to redo the whole
Yeah.
thing?" But luckily, there's the America statue, which will spawn you pretty close enough to,
Yeah.
like, the end boss where you don't have to redo everything. That was really great too,
Yep.
and I do feel like they did a really impressive job, like adding and implementing these helpful little things to like it's still punishing, but it's not like game breaking punishing where you're like this is absolutely unfair. Like they help you on and encourage you to, beat the boss, do whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
But still keep it like definitely I feel like on a similar level of challenging as like the other
Oh, for
Souls title,
sure. Yeah, they
which is
found a
great.
good absolutely a good balance to maintain that like what you would expect from a FromSoft
Mhm.
game. Um
Definitely.
and it's like even those they're like shrines of Marika or something. I don't remember any of the names. They all sound too similar. But it's the ones where you respawn when you die. A nice
Mhm.
trade-off for that is it's not a I was gonna I'm just gonna call it a
Oh, not a
bonfire.
sign of grace?
Yeah, right. And so you
Yes.
can't like change your Ash of War, or you
Yeah.
can't like do some of those edits to your build, or like level up a little bit, or whatever. Like it's like no, you got to just try it again, exactly how you just did it, more or less. And so I feel like that's a good trade off for like you can't run back. You can if you
Mhm.
want to, but if you wanted the quick respawn, then you
Yeah.
you can't edit your build very much. You got to pretty much just go in and hopefully you have another tool in your kit that you can try or whatever. So yeah, I feel like that's a good point. That was a really good trade off for the because that is one thing that Demon Souls and Dark Souls one.
Yes.
I feel like two did it as well. I don't think three was as bad, but those
Mhm.
run backs to the bosses is just like okay, like this
A little
is
more
becoming not fun anymore. Like yeah,
yeah.
and I think
Mhm.
Demon Souls is like you only get bonfires when you kill a boss. So you have the previous boss's bonfire to the new
Mhm.
boss's bonfire every time.
Mhm.
And so yeah, it's just like it's very punishing in that sense. So Elden Ring definitely found like a good middle ground with
Yeah.
that sort of a more modernized version of that design to take out some of
Mhm.
the grind. Um, so like uh, because I'm trying to think of ones specifically that gave you a lot of trouble. Melania we'll talk about at the end,
Yes.
because yeah, that was one of the best boss fights in a FromSoft game I've ever done, but
Yes.
also the most infuriating one.
Yeah, there's so much I could say about her boss fight.
Yeah,
She's great. She's
we'll
fantastic.
we'll talk about her at the end.
Yeah.
But I think the God the Rodon.
Yes,
Uh,
Radon, the
yeah,
star.
yeah, it took me like 8 or 9 tries before I realized there's like a million summon signs
Oh, really?
where you start. I just kept running up by
Oh,
myself. And I was like,
that's
man, there's gotta be something I'm missing.
yeah. There's a good amount of them scattered around too.
Yeah, there's a ton
I
of them. Yeah.
Yes, I noticed them and was like, "Oh my," I was so excited. I was like, "This is so cool that
Yeah.
you could summon all these people and that there was no limit," because I really like using, I don't like using people summons, but I like using in-game summons,
Yeah.
and I feel like part of it also is because, I forget which Dark Souls it was, I wanna say it was Dark Souls 2, had a lot of, like, NPC storyline progression based on how many times you summoned them in boss fights and they were alive at the end of the fight.
Ah,
Like, it was a really complicated mechanic, and I was,
interesting.
like, underutilizing my NPCs. So then I got into the habit of always summoning NPCs whenever I could.
Yeah.
So to have that sort of, like, person like battle participant capacity limit like removed
Yeah.
was so cool to like see all of these people running. The added bonus of being able to summon patches only for his cowardly ass to just milk
Oh,
out
I
was
didn't know he
also
was. I didn't know he was one of them. That's hilarious.
Patches, and then like he'll be there for like a couple seconds, and then you'll get this message that like Patches
He
is
left.
returned to his home world. Yeah, and you're like, oh. Because like I saw him and I was like, no way, you could also summon Patches. So I summoned him expecting him to do something, and like, no, I'm like
No.
that he's not gonna help you. It's Patches. So
Yeah.
it's hilarious. Even like little things like that, they're just so great.
I think it was I had like tried to, like I said, 7 or 8 times and I was making no progress. And so
Mhm.
I like backed out and I was like, oh, maybe I'll go, like I'll return. Like, and I think I did go and do other stuff and come back. But
Mhm.
then I was talking to like, because I feel like you're up in this like courtyard in like the
Yeah.
castle, and it's the
Yes.
festival of the hunt
It's like
or something
yeah,
like that. I can't
it's
remember what
like
it's called.
fighting festival thing that they have
Yeah.
going on. Yeah.
And one of the NPCs there is like, oh, like I look forward to like riding with you into battle or something. And I was like, that's I was like, wait a second. And like when I went back in, I was like, that dialogue
Oh,
triggered. I was like, oh, they want to fight with me, duh.
yeah.
So and then that's when I noticed you could like summon. So I don't remember who I got. I was just frantically summoning whichever ones I could
Yeah,
before because he's doing
running
that
over
like
people,
long
running
range.
yeah, the
It's like
huge, like, ballista arrows. Yeah. Or the
yeah.
huge rows of them. His attacks were so scary.
Yeah, and so we talked a little bit before we started recording how once you finish a game like that, you can start watching all the content
Yes.
creators. Oh, I want to see their playthrough, and I want to see their playthrough and their reaction to this moment and stuff. And one of my favorite reactions, the compilations I've seen, is when he like goes into like phase 2 and he
Oh my
just
god,
comes down as a meteor.
yes! That took me completely off guard.
Same.
I was like, "Where'd he go?" So I'm, like, futzing around. He took out all my friends, and I was like, oh no. This is not good."
And it's
Man.
like it's like the animation of it starts so far
Great.
out. So it's
Yeah.
like you're just looking around and you're like, I feel like I hear something, and you just look up and it's just coming like,
Yeah.
oh my god, it was such a cool moment.
You
So
mentions that you also played Monster Hunter. Had you ever fought I forget his name, I'm blanking on it.
Nergigante? Oh
No,
no,
there's another one.
the bomber, the one that
There's
drops all his
also one
flakes and and they blow
there's
up.
there's another one. They added him into Rise as well, but I forget his
I'm
name.
so bad at their names.
But he's also I forget because I didn't fight him before and I only fought him in Rise
It's
a
like
couple of times.
Battle
No, not that
Beelzegoose or something? Not that one? Okay.
Not that one. It's a different one. I forget his name, but he has an attack very similar to Radon's phase 2 opening
Oh,
attack,
yes. Yes,
where he
yes,
goes
yes.
into the sky
Yep.
and then all of a sudden will
Yeah.
crash down and instantly cart you or
Yeah.
anyone around you if you're targeted.
Yeah,
And so
I
when
can
Radon
picture
did
it.
his
I
attack,
forget the
I
name.
was like, "Oh no," like I was also like experiencing PTSD and having flashbacks to that fight. I was like, "Oh no, I'm by myself." It was so bad.
Yeah.
That move was just one of my favorite like boss like phase 2s
Yeah.
in all of
Because the music cuts out too. Like you're genuinely like, I forget if his health bar disappears. I don't think it does. Because I think I still was like, okay, well, where is he though? Like,
I feel like it's like when you get like to like
halfway or something,
2/3,
maybe.
halfway 2/3, yeah.
Yeah.
He
So I
will,
don't think
like,
his
dip.
yeah, and I don't think his health bar like disappears to really troll you that the fight's
No.
over. But
It's
the
still
music
there.
stops.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's just it makes you stressed because you're like, well, the health bar's still there, but the music's on and I don't see him. Like, what's happening?
And
It's such a great setup.
it's funny too because there's like some random side quest tangent I went on.
Mhm.
It was like one of the dragons I was fighting. I don't remember, like Glintstone
Yeah.
dragon or something, whatever it was called. But like it was somewhere in like the northwest area. I like got it down to like a little over halfway like health, and then he just disappeared.
Yes.
And
they
I
all
was
do
like,
that.
I didn't know if my game like bugged out or like, it's like what?
Right?
I was so confused. So it's
Mhm.
like and I feel like I did that not that long before I was fighting Rodan. So I'm just like, wait, did
Oh,
this happen again? And then like, wait, I hear something, and then you see the meteor coming down. So yeah, that's been a fun one to watch other
yes.
people's reaction of when that moment happens.
Hmm.
And then when I like, so I think it was like my friend Reese was definitely like gently nudging me when I would ask him, like, I don't even know where I should be working
Yeah.
towards because the map is, is so huge. And
Egg.
once I think I killed I forget, is it Rodon or
Radon.
Rodon?
Hmm.
Um, and they like, I think they reference him as being, what are they called? Great
Stark.
Lords.
Oh, yes, he's one of, yeah.
Yeah, and then I was like, oh, how many Great Lord? Because it's like when you kill one of them, you get their soul that you can use turn into a weapon or a spell. And I
Yes.
was like, okay, that reminds me of Dark Souls 3
Yes.
progression. So I was like,
Yes.
I'll work on getting those things,
The great
killing.
rooms.
Yeah. So I just
Yes.
looked up like what are they, so I can
Hmm.
just slowly work towards,
Yeah.
and then that has its challenges when I have like I need like 7 tabs of Fextra Life open to figure out how do I get to the Volcano Manor. I don't
Yeah.
understand.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's kind of how I did my progression of the game. Is once I killed that second one, I was like, okay, this feels very tied to progression. So I looked at the list and I just started, I still went on many side, tangents when
Mhm.
I'm like, ooh, what's over here? What's over here?
Yeah.
What's over here? Right. So,
Yeah.
100 hours later, that's what happened. But um, that was probably the one big wall I hit. There's one I should have looked up the name. It's way up in like the snowy area at the north, and it's in one of
Mhm.
those castles. I don't think he was a
Oh,
great lord, but he was
but
like
it was the commander at Castle Sol,
that sounds right.
I want to say.
He had like two smaller guys with him.
I think so, yeah, and he, like, he attacked, like, with his leg, and he didn't,
Yeah,
like, yep.
yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that
That was him. That was probably the other one that, and I think I might have been a little under leveled for that one.
guy. Mhm.
Because like the damage output wasn't great, but it was
Uh-huh.
like enough that I was like, I feel like if I just have a really good run, I can do it.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of stubborn on that one.
Mhm.
And I stuck with him for that probably took me like 3 or 4 hours to get him down. But outside of Melania, I think those were the two that I was like stuck on for
Mhm.
the longest.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, my journey was really weird. I tended to bypass a lot of difficult things without too much issue a lot of the time. I think one of so, like, early on in Elden Ring was, like, when I struggled the most, but I wound up using, the Bloodhound Fang, which is a curved greatsword,
Hmm.
for, like, my entire playthrough, and, like, once I got that sword, I pretty much swept through, like, a lot of bosses, but, when you fight, I believe Market is the who he's called, but he's the first guy you fight when you go
Right.
to the castle just, like, north of where you start.
Yes.
Um and a lot of people describe him as like the first real challenge in
Yeah.
Elden Ring. And so I did I forget what they call it in this game, the Wretch build, the build where you start at like level 1. So
Oh,
not
sure.
like the pre-built like levels, where
Yeah.
they start you around like closer to level 10 and they give you clothes and like weapons. I did
Yeah.
the like you have nothing except a club.
Okay.
So I
I've never
ran it.
done that. I've never done that build before. I should try it once, but
It's yeah, it's because I had, like, it was, like, at the end of my, like, FromSoft run with, like, streaming, I was like, "Well,
true.
I'm on the last FromSoft game, like,
Good
we just
point.
beat Dark Souls 3, so I'd always been curious about this, so even though it's my first time playing, let's try running this."
Yeah.
So, I believe that was how I wound up fighting Market at, like, level, I wanna say 7, with just my club. And
Right.
I believe I was so underleveled. That was, like, really that took me so long to beat him because I think you're
Yeah.
technically supposed to be around, like, level 20, but
Probably. Yeah.
I was so stubborn. I was like, "If I could beat Sekiro and all the other FromSoft
Yeah.
games, I could do this." And I think we were there for a couple hours, but I finally beat him,
Okay.
and then beating, Godric the Grafted, who was
Yeah.
the boss of that,
Yeah. The
castle,
castle
was
there. Yeah.
he
Storm
also
Vale or something.
yes.
Yeah.
Stormdale Castle. Yeah, he also took me like a hot minute to do also. I think I was probably a little underleveled. I didn't have like my Bloodhound Fang, but
Right.
once I had Bloodhound Fang, I was tearing through a good chunk of bosses. Like Radon did still take me like an hour to 2 hours.
Yeah.
Renala, I think I was able to get through fairly easily.
She's
Uh,
at the top of the
Rhea
like.
Lucaria. She's the lady with the like the long like pointy
Oh
hair
yeah,
and
she's the
the
one that
first
you can respec with after,
yes,
right?
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Okay, yeah, yeah. I didn't find hers wasn't too bad. It
Yeah.
was more of a gimmicky fight, just killing
Yeah.
the. Although then you
Yeah.
have to go and fight her.
In that
But
like weird like open pond
yeah,
thing. Yeah.
I got her. I
Uh
got to her very late. I didn't go
oh,
right from Godric to her. I ended up going on some really like
yeah.
sidetracked for a while. So by the time I got to her, yeah, I was chunking her
Super.
down pretty good. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. It's fun when that happens.
yeah,
But it also like feels bad a little bit because there's definitely been like I'd be running around at like other parts and like I completely avoided Castle Morn, which is like on the southernmost tip of the
yes.
map. And by the time I got there, like I was mowing through all the enemies, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Ooh, feels a little bad when you're killing all the enemies in like 1 or 2 hits." Because then it's like,
Yeah.
"Oh no, this is like meant for ages ago.
Yeah.
Like I should have done this like way before." Um, but
And I feel like that's going to happen in an open world
yeah,
game, regardless of how well it's designed. It's
yes,
like
definitely.
that. It's
There's just so
impossible
much
for
to look
that.
at.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
definitely.
Yeah.
I feel like Praetor Rykard was pretty tough. I think also because he was like, you had to use your specific. They give you the weapon to fight Praetor Rykard with,
Oh yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and him and his lava was tearing
Yeah.
me up.
Yeah.
That was a rough time.
that was probably a good like 2 hours worth of attempts for me too. Yeah, and it was like the damage output was good. It was just like you
His
know
damage output was like he was hitting you all the time with all
yeah
these
you really had
attacks.
to be more patient because like
Yes,
you have the damage output to get them down. You just got to know when to use
to
those
strike.
swings or whatever. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a yeah, there's so many bosses. As you mentioned some I'll remember because I already
Yeah.
forgot. But yeah, he was another one that was tricky. Um oh, I had another one I was thinking of.
There was
I'll
some
come
Crucible
back.
Knights at a hero's grave
Yeah.
to right by Lane Dell. And I think it was one of the first like heroes graves that I had gone into, but it was like this duo of Crucible Knights.
Oh
And
god, I don't think I
it
saw
was
that one.
God, it was my first time fighting them and like
And two
you,
of them.
they yes, and as bosses they like gave me like they reminded me a little bit of like Ornstein and Smo because like one of them was kind of like a slow heavy attacker and one of them was like a faster sort of attacker, but they
Okay, yeah.
both had this like they have that attack where they go into the air with their wings and then
Yeah,
they
and they
dive at
dive at
you,
you,
and
yeah.
God, that was definitely so frustrating. I tried fighting him for a while and then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna get myself like all riled up. I don't think I can beat them. I don't think I have the damage output to take out because I couldn't even get one of them down. I was like,
No.
there's no way I can get both of them down right now.
No.
Definitely very tough.
Um yeah, some of those jails it really depends on like when you stumble upon them
Oh yeah.
for, their difficulty. The one God, the one in the like when you're like in the air tree. God, I don't remember his name. He's like you're right at the base of the tree, and you fight him. And
Yeah.
then I think you can't go into the tree yet until you go do other side quests or whatever. But I
Hmm.
don't remember his name. But that one, he was like almost like similar to that first boss move set a little bit because he like the
Oh, are you
the
talking about Morgott?
probably
Because
he like
yeah,
summons the gold hammer and he
yes,
yeah.
because he is in my lore divings, there's like theories that he's the same as Margit, the first boss that you fight. It's like an avatar of his because their names are like similar, and you can purchase like a shackle from Patches to help fight Margit that like binds him to the earth. And that
Okay.
same item so that it stops him from doing his like leaping golden hammer attack. And
Okay.
apparently you can use that same shackle on Morgott when you fight him. So there's like a theory
Ah.
that like it's like the same
It's like a
guy.
shade of the same person or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, because his whole thing, like when you first like confront him in front of Stormfield Castle, is that he's like taunting you and telling you that you're, like not worthy of being
Right.
Elden Lord and that he's the protector of the Erd Tree. And when you get to the base of the Erd Tree, he is there as its protector.
Right.
Um,
Okay. Yeah, that makes
so I
because his
think that
moveset
might
is
be
like feels very similar.
yes, exactly.
Um,
So I think there's like a reason
yeah.
behind it.
Okay. Yeah. I trust your lore your lore deep dives more than mine because you actually took notes. So I would trust your word over mine. Um so the what was it? When you use the was it Bloodhound Fang
Yes.
or yeah. So I generally will every time I start like a new FromSoft game, I'm like, okay, let me try something different. I'm gonna try
Yeah.
some magic, or I'm gonna do this, or a full dex build, and then it's like the game's like, here's a giant hammer or a giant sword. I'm like, yeah, I want to use that though.
Yeah.
I always just like devolve into like, no, but give me the big two-handed weapon. I'll just use that instead.
Uh-huh.
Is that kind of like what your Dark Souls run was like?
Um,
Like, is that the type of build you ran for all the games?
so no. I Demon Souls and Dark Souls, I did kind of like a dexterity builds with both of them.
Okay.
I think Dark Souls 1 was when I did like a flame enchanted like long sword.
Oh,
So
okay.
it was more so like it was like a standard like shield and sword kind of thing that I was doing.
Okay.
Dark Souls 2, I was like, let's do magic, but let's do like not normal magic. So I wound up getting into hexes. So it was like
Okay.
dark magic.
Okay.
Um, so I was burning souls to do magic in that game too. So that was like a very unique
Ooh,
magic
interesting.
experience. Yeah, and then Dark Souls 3, I was like, all right, we gotta do the popular fan favorite classic. We're gonna do Unga Bunga. So I
What's
did
that one?
Vorts. It's just, I mean, Unga Bunga at its core is like you're not wearing anything and you just have a giant like club. But I wore stuff. I wasn't quite like
Okay.
Deacon in all my runs, but I did Vort's hammer, so I was, running around smashing things with a hammer the entire game.
Sure.
And it got to the point where my chat was like, "We shouldn't have told you about this hammer. You are steamrolling enemies. You shouldn't be steamrolling. It isn't fair. We want to see you suffer." But
Yeah.
because that hammer is like a hammer you can acquire fairly early on.
Yeah.
It's a boss weapon
Right.
too.
Because you fight
So
him. Yeah, I remember
yes,
that boss. Yeah.
yep. So it's pretty easy and it can certainly carry you through the whole game. And it certainly
Okay.
carried me through the whole game and like through the DLC and everything. So
And
um
I honestly feel like you get like momentum when you go through FromSoft games. Like if you
yes.
were to like not play a FromSoft game for a long time, like that's why I'd only go back and replay them every couple of years. Cause like
Hmm.
I don't want to be like super good at them. I want
Yeah.
it to like still be kind of hard.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you're going through them a little more sequentially like that,
Hmm.
obviously you're only playing it like one day a week, so you're not like fully in that momentum,
Yeah.
but you still like you just know you get a feel for how they play. So like yeah,
Hmm.
if you introduce someone like that who's kind of on that momentum with a really good weapon, it's like
Yep.
yeah, you're gonna steamroll a lot of stuff if
Yep.
you're comfortable with this combat already.
It was definitely getting to that point. And then it just I mean like in Bloodborne I kind of shifted back to like a dex build too. I did the cane
Oh wow, okay.
trick weapon.
Yep.
Because my whole thing in Bloodborne, they had I think jumping from like Dark Souls 2 to Bloodborne, their character creation also like changed a lot. And chat was like, you can make like a really hot character. And I was like,
Oh yeah.
or I could make a grandma. So I made her this like really old, like stern looking lady. And I was like, and you know what weapon she
She
needs? A
needs a
cane.
cane.
Yeah. So I played through the entire game. We called her Grambo. It was great.
Okay.
I love that was like one of the most fun runs that I did. I had a lot of fun with
Yeah.
Bloodborne. Um, so I think the cane because the stats are also different in Bloodborne,
Yes.
but I think it technically falls into the category of like a dexterity build.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know if they have one that's called specifically Dex. I can't remember in
no,
Bloodborne, but it's like
yeah,
It's a very clear
It's
weapon that is
different. Yeah.
more, a more dexterous weapon benefits
Yeah.
from that stat than its dex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And then I had beaten Dark Souls 3 and then immediately transitioned. I had like a little bit more stream time. So then I immediately transitioned into Elden Ring.
Okay.
So I started with a club. So it was like, well,
Already
I actually
familiar.
yeah, I cycled because it was like since I was naked and only had a club starting at level 1, I was also just kind of trying everything that I could get. So I also like ran like a lance or like a pole arm for a while. I think I
Mhm.
did like a dagger. I tried like a couple different weapons that I hadn't really tried in like other games to see if anything would really stick. But yeah, it was like once I got that Bloodhound Fang, I was like, oh, this feels familiar. This feels like Lord's Hammer. And then
Yeah.
I couldn't part with it. It was the only thing. If I had to not do like slashing damage, I just swapped to a different club.
Yeah.
Still a big two-handed weapon, and I would
Yeah.
use that. But that was what I stuck with through all of Elden Ring.
It was like 90%. And it was like funny because it was a two-handed hammer. I don't remember where I got it, but I got it pretty early.
Mhm.
It literally is just like a cement block on a stick. It was like not the coolest looking weapon by any stretch, but it was good damage output, and I was like not far from like the strength requirement when I got it. So I was like, oh, I can get that in a couple levels or
Yep.
whatever. And so like that was the majority of what I used was that hammer, and I feel like it
Right.
staggered people really easily if you did like charge
That's
attacks and stuff.
so good. Yeah.
And so I used that for the most part. When I started running into, there's like some area where you're like, there's a lot of climbing involved, and there's a lot of bats that you have to fight in this like area, and it was hard to hit them with the freaking hammer.
Yes. Yes.
So I upgraded I don't know what specifically, but it's some kind of spear. I don't think it was like short
Uh,
spear or something.
mhm.
I upgraded one of those, and I would use that a lot. Also, I like dragoons, so I'm probably gonna use the
Yeah.
spear too.
Makes sense.
And so I use that sometimes, and then I got like it's like some dragon katana that's like ice and lightning.
Oh wow.
And I was like, I don't remember where I got that, but I was like one boss I was stuck on, and like my hammer just wasn't doing it,
Mhm.
and there was like a fiery enemy, and some it was like a fire drake or something,
Oh
and I
yeah,
was
one of
like
those.
looking at my weapons, like, oh, what is this? Like this has ice or whatever, because the like
Mhm.
weapon art for it, it's like it does like this lightning strike, and then it enchants the weapon with ice and lightning for a while.
Oh
And I was
wow.
like, so I was like, this is pretty handy sometimes. So I
Yeah.
upgraded that too. So
Nice.
I had like those three weapons basically. Like I
Mhm.
tried to upgrade them as much as I could. Once I understood how to, that you can go into like the mines and just find like a million smithing stones
Yes.
on the wall.
Yes.
I spent like a day like doing that and like upgrading my weapons and stuff. So I had those three to basically switch. I had some other ones that I because I had so many of those the special smithing stones, like the somber whatever they're
Yeah.
called, for like the
Mhm.
boss weapons and stuff. So I had a couple.
Mhm.
I had a lot of those. So I operated a couple boss weapons, but I didn't really end up
Nice.
using those as much because that hammer
Yeah.
was just too good. That
Mhm.
hammer was just so fun to swing around.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's mostly what I went through. I didn't do. I don't think I had any magic at any point. It was just the summons I would
I
use.
same.
Yeah,
Same.
and I had it had a name, but it's like a hawk or something that I would
Mhm.
summon, and it was
Yeah.
really good at interrupting. And
Oh, nice.
he would like dive bomb in, and like he was kind of hard
Mhm.
for the enemy to hit because he like flew around a lot. So that
Mhm.
was like when I needed a little helping hand on a boss, like that was usually the one I upgraded that, and I would summon him in
Nice.
for when I needed it. But that was
Mhm.
pretty much my build about like 40 or 50 hours in, and then that just
Nice.
carried me basically
Yeah.
through the rest of the game.
It's nice that it takes a while to kind of figure out your play style, but I feel like once you
Yeah.
kind of like settle into it, it's really nice that it just kind of carries you. Like that's who you become for the rest
Yeah.
of your Elden Ring journey.
Exactly, yeah. And then I think other games did this, but I don't know if I really ever understood the system behind it as well as I got it in this one, where you can like change the affinity or the
Yes.
scaling on the weapons to
Yes.
like
I
use
never
strength
understood those.
instead of whatever else.
Yeah.
And once I like got started unlocking that option,
Mhm.
Then it's like, okay, this katana, it's a strength katana.
Yeah.
It does not need dex anymore,
Mhm.
or stuff like that. Oh, I had a twin sword for a while too, because that had
Oh?
it had good like bleed, like blood loss build
Ah,
up, and so that was
yeah.
good for like humanoid kind of bosses or
Mhm.
whatever, and it also spun it around like Darth Maul, so it was like pretty cool.
Oh, that is pretty awesome.
The move set for it was pretty fun. Um, what else was so okay? Let's talk about Melania because
Okay.
yeah, that fight. Goddamn. So my friend, so some of my friends that I play FF14 with, like
Mhm.
where we have a Discord server or whatever, and while I was playing through Elden Ring, I would just like stream it in our Discord because one of my friends
Mhm.
would watch me play it a lot. And like
Mhm.
he didn't play it, I don't think himself, but he knew about. Is it Melania? Am I saying it right? I always
Yes, it
forget.
is
Okay,
Millennia.
because there's Melania and Melika and whatever. I always
Yeah,
forget.
all their names are very similar.
Yeah. So Melania, he knew who she was, and I think he had watched videos of that boss fight and just
Mhm.
knew how insane she was. And my friend Reese, who kind of got me started on Souls games, he like kind of nudged me in the direction like where to find her and stuff too. So
Mhm.
getting there first of all was intense. Like that was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I'll just stroll up to Melania and give that boss fight a try. It was like
Yeah.
3 days later, like okay, I can
That
finally
Halo
try the
tree,
boss.
God, that was a trial in itself. Was like,
Yeah,
when you land there, you're like, "Oh, wow, what is this place?" And when you're working through it, you're like, "I don't like this place. This place sucks."
yeah,
Just all
and
the
the,
enemies attacking you, like, you don't even, like, see them because they see you because 'cause they're, like, all up in the trees or
yeah.
whatever, shooting at you from far away, and they hit real hard, like
And then when you get down to like the castle area,
yep.
God, it's like it felt so long between
Yes. Oh
the
my
sites of
gosh.
grace. Like I was like
Yeah.
I was stuck on that part, the one to get to the site of grace right outside her boss fight,
Yes. That
or at
took me a
least.
while too.
Oh wait, no, because then you're in the castle wall, then you get behind
Yeah.
that big demon at the bottom, and
That
there's one
dude is
there.
so aggravating. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't kill him. I'm just like
I never
I
killed him
ran
either.
past him. I was like, get out of here. I can't.
Same. I think I, like, summoned, like, my, like, little ash buddy out there to distract them, and I was like, "I'm just gonna book it in there, like, I'm not gonna bother. I don't do any damage on this guy for some reason.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna bother with it."
No. Yeah, same. I did some I think I don't know how I got them distracted, but I engaged him so he moved out, and then I
Mhm.
just tried to dodge and run in behind him and just run to
Mhm.
the tap that site of grace. Because
Yeah,
then you go
really
from
stuck.
that, then you got to go through all the fucking rot stuff.
Yes! Oh
To,
my god, with all the centipede people hiding in the
yes.
water. Yeah.
And it's just
God.
like, because I thought when I
It
got to
never
that one,
ends.
no, I thought when I got
Yeah.
behind the demon, I'm like, okay, I'm good now. And I get down here, I'm like,
Uh-huh.
oh god, because I went for I remembered this from like Dark Souls 3 when you're in the
Mhm.
swamp and you can't run, the poison swamp, I think it was.
Mhm.
You
Little
can
poison.
there's always one, right?
Yeah.
I think it's like the weapon art on the dagger is like a quick
Yes,
dash. And I
yes.
I remembered that from like years ago. I'm like, wait, I think that worked in Dark Souls 3 and maybe it works here. So I just put a dagger on and I was like, okay, I can at least get through that scarlet, all the
Mhm.
swampy areas getting down there or whatever. Was there a boss down that way? I don't think so. Could,
Uh,
like on the way to
technically,
Melania?
there is an optional boss technically as part of Millicent's storyline if you ever did her storyline.
I probably didn't. What was the
M
boss?
it was well, it was, like, kind of like a two-parter. There was, like, a rot, like, I forget what they're called, but they're, like, the giant when you kill them, they drop a golden seed, but, I forget their name, but they're kind of
Hmm.
like giant, like, not quite like dragons, maybe they're like worms, but they're really aggravating. They spawn in a couple different places in the world as well. This one spawned, like, in the swamp, but it was like when you went through the area, you had to, like, jump over to, like, another side area that had this, like, blood pool,
Okay.
and then it would spawn there,
Okay, I don't
and
think I
then you
did
could
that
fight
then.
it. Yeah, you would fight it, and then after you fought it, there would be like two summon signs to basically choose how you wanted to end an NPC storyline. And then that
Ah,
was also kind of like its own boss fight.
okay. Yeah,
So
I
there was like a
definitely didn't do that
like
then. I
yeah,
missed that one.
it's just like a side thing. It's not like a full blown boss fight. I think I don't think it had like a full health bar.
Oh, okay.
It might just be like a small limit was one of those like really. No, I think it probably had a long one. These ones typically like when you find them because I remember there was like when you enter Lanedale from the west and then you go like south to like check out this camp. I remember this thing just like I was like, "Oh, cool. I'll just stealth into this camp." And then this giant enemy just kind of like came up from the ground and destroyed everything. And I was like, "Okay, well, I guess I'm fighting, and there's also no more camp for me to like raid. So I guess this is what I'm fighting now." Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't believe that there is a boss. I forget exactly how. I think you just climb down, but like you go into the sewers and then you take like an elevator down or something and
That sounds
then
right.
there's just more of the annoying, like, centipede
Yeah.
people that, like, shoot at you, but
And
then
they
you
they
go
like
in
curve their
or
bullets like
yes, they do!
yeah, you can't hide from those from
Yeah,
those shots. Yeah.
they're
Um
aggravating.
the so yeah, when I got down there, my friend was like, I think he had to like he was he just like was AFK for a few minutes like getting food. And I was like, I'm pretty sure this is the boss fight he's talking about. So it's like, I'll wait. I'll go wait for
Yeah,
him to come back. And then yeah, he watched me and it's like that first info, information pull that you do. Like, all right, let's see what
yeah,
this boss does. And it's like, oh, it's not too bad. Like, because she's you can like interrupt her easily or
yes,
whatever. I don't know if the interrupt is the right word, but like you can kind of stagger her a little bit
mhm,
in between hits sometimes. And
mhm,
using a heavy weapon, like I was getting that
yep,
often.
mhm,
But then like it's like okay, like like got a couple damage, got some damage, like saw some of her moves, and like I think she killed me pretty fast the first time. But I was like, yeah, you expect that when you go in.
yeah,
Like, all right, let me see a couple more moves,
yeah.
and like doing some damage, and then she goes up in the air and floats there for a second. I was like, oh, what's this move? And this,
Oh, yep,
and I'm
yep,
just like, this is the thing I'm gonna have to figure out.
yep. This is
um,
the big problem in her phase 1.
yeah. And then, I had done damage to her. And then when I died to that move, I looked, I'm like, what the hell?
Uh-oh.
Like, where's the damage? And he's like, bro, she heals. I was like, oh
Yeah.
God. And so you're like,
Yes.
yeah, that's when I was like, okay, settle in. This is gonna
Yeah.
take some time.
Yeah. That
Which
life steal is nuts.
which one thing too, and I don't know if this is too obscure that I may be reading too much into it, but so her outfit
Mhm,
and like her helmet, even though it's like more medieval style armor, it looks
mhm,
Bloodborne to me. Like it honestly, her like because the way they have those like winged hats in Bloodborne,
mhm,
it kind of made me think of like a Bloodborne sort of look, and like
mhm,
her katana with her like prosthetic arm is like almost like trick weapon esque, and she
mm.
heals when she hits you, which is what you
Oh,
do in Bloodborne. And I was like,
that is
I
true.
might be reaching a bit, but I'm gonna say this is a slight Bloodborne. Not that she's from Bloodborne in any way, but it's just like a nod
It
to
probably
Bloodborne in
is.
some way.
I never fought there's a special boss at the end of Sekiro that's like a hell demon or something. I never fought it because it scared me, but a lot of people said that that boss was really difficult because it was a boss that you had to fight with a play style that was more akin to Dark Souls and not like Sekiro. And when you're playing
Ah,
Sekiro, it like throws you off because
sure.
you're used to battling everything else the way that you were supposed to in Sekiro. So I don't think that would necessarily be like too much of a stretch to say that like Melania does fight, especially with the like lifesteal
Yeah,
mechanic that she has. It is very Bloodborne, so
and
it would
and
make sense.
if you listen to the sound effect when she hits you and heals,
Mhm.
I swear to God, that's like lifted from Bloodborne. Like it honestly sounds like the when you're getting life back in Bloodborne. So I
Mhm.
might be reaching, but I'm gonna call it a nod for sure.
I could
Um,
definitely see that.
yeah. Um, So, oh god, yeah, and it was like I would go and I would fight her for like 2 hours with like the weapon I was using, and I was like, okay,
Mhm.
this isn't working. Like, let me, I'll attune it to fire, or like let me see if she's weak to this, or I try. I think I used my twin sword because the blood buildup was really good, and that would chunk her
Mhm.
down, would kind of
Yes.
compensate for the healing she gets back. But
Mhm.
it didn't stun her the way like the other
Yeah,
weapons.
like
I'm
a
like,
heavy
ah,
weapon would. Yeah.
yeah. So it was like I went back and forth so much. I think, and like the bird that I summoned was pretty good at interrupting,
Mhm.
but it also made it like a little harder to predict her
Mhm.
moves because like sometimes
Yes,
she would
that's the
target.
Yep. That's the hard part too about, like, it can kind of the benefit of having, like, a second party in a fight that's so intense with Melania is that, like, it can help because it can take some of the heat off of you, but it
Right.
also can hinder because, like, when she's focusing on you and you get so hyper tuned to, like, her moveset, you
Yeah.
can kind of anticipate her move so easily, but introducing that second, like, target for her can definitely throw you for a loop because then you can misread the attacks, and that
Y-
sucks.
Yeah, because if she's not even looking at you, sometimes it's hard to tell like what move she's queuing up, and she'll
Yeah,
heal off your pet when she hits it.
exactly. Yeah.
So I think ultimately, I think I stopped summoning it in phase one, but I
Mhm.
would still summon it in phase. I think I because you have time in
Yes.
phase two. I think I summoned it there.
Yes.
Oh man, in the attempt that I actually killed her, I don't know if I actually did summon it. I might have saved my magic for. I think I was putting fire on my weapon because I had a
Oh,
weapon art that would like spray fire and then you can like enchant your weapon. I think I used that. I don't remember if I summoned, but anyway, because it was hard. Like sometimes she would focus on it, and it's like as much as it sucks when you're trying to get a heal in when
yeah.
she's like gunning you down.
Yeah.
It's still easier to like read what she's gonna do if she's facing you or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but and like the first time I got her down phase one, like I was like, I'm not stupid. Like I know there's a phase
Yep.
two. Like I didn't
Yeah.
pop off. Like I wasn't like, yeah, I got her. I was like, there's no way it's over.
Yeah.
It's like,
It's just kind of like a sigh of relief, like, "Ah, I've got that out of the way, but I know there's something much
yeah.
worse than that that's coming soon." So,
And then it's like, okay, time to learn phase two. Let's see what she's,
yeah.
and I'm dead.
Yep, immediate death. I remember the first time I saw her face too was like 2 seconds, and then I immediately died, and I was like, "Hmm, I
yeah.
wish I could have learned a little bit more about her phase 2," but
yeah.
and then it's back to doing phase 1 for, like, another, like, hour, 2 hours.
Yeah, because it's no cakewalk.
Yeah.
Even though you know what she's gonna do, sometimes it's just pure
You can't
luck.
react fast enough, yeah, sometimes it just happens, and
Yeah, and it was like, because like immediately in phase two, she does that move where she starts
mhm,
up and crashes down, and the
yeah,
flower thing comes up, and
just yeah,
all the scarlet rot or whatever. So it's like if you don't know how to dodge that one move, you have like
yeah,
1 second to realize what's about to happen.
yeah,
So it took me probably like 4 times getting to phase two to
mhm,
figure out like, do I dodge back? Do I dodge to the
yeah.
side? Do I
Which
dodge?
direction to go, like,
Yeah.
yeah, when do you dodge? There's so much
Yeah,
that goes
yeah,
into
the
it.
timing too, exactly. Yeah.
Mhm,
So yeah, it definitely. It was probably like by the end of. I think I did it for like 3 or 4 hours the first time I got to her, and then the
mhm,
next day was like 3 or 4 hours, and I think it was by the end of that second
uh-huh.
session that I actually could live for more than a second in phase
Oh,
two,
good.
just to start learning and
Yeah,
you learn she does a lot of similar moves, but
yes,
with a
they're a
little extra
little
flourish to it,
yeah,
or an extra explosion, or
they're just a little bit scarier than
yeah.
how much scarier they were to start with.
Yeah.
Her waterfall dance, the move where she's just spinning around like crazy was, like, scared me so much the first time, and then in phase 2, like, I'm pretty sure every time she did that attack, I'd just be, like, screaming and running, like, trying to figure out how I could possibly live through it.
It was like I would that was my what I started doing was just running, because if you immediately just start running, you can outrun the first two, but she like homes in on the third one, like she
Yep.
guns you down.
Yeah.
And so I think what I ended up doing was I could block the first flurry, and not run out of stamina, and then I would dodge behind her and then turn around and dodge behind her.
Oh, nice.
And she would miss me with those two. And I was getting to the point that I could do it pretty consistently by like hour 12.
Yeah.
You know, this took a lot of time to like get the
Mhm.
timing, and, you know, because I'm always dual wield, like I'm two-handing my weapon. So I have to like, as soon as she goes up, I got to like switch back to my shield and, you know,
Yeah.
back up, because if I'm right below her, I'm not going to block it because she's going to kind of
Yes.
get behind me or whatever. So it's just like you got to be so hyper focused to look for when
Yes.
she goes up like that or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then so yeah, and I think that also pretty much worked in phase two. Like you could dodge it in the same sort of, that pattern I was doing worked there. But the thing that kept getting me in phase two that I just didn't know what to do was when she
Mhm.
goes up and she summons those like spirit things that just lunge
Yeah.
at you.
Oh my gosh.
I don't think I ended up getting a consistent strategy for that. I
Yeah.
would just like, I think on my attempts the attempt that I won, and the only times it didn't kill me, I would just like back up and run sideways, and most of
Mhm.
the crisscross ones would miss me, but then I'd have to roll when she
Yeah.
came down, because that she would hit me if I was just running.
Mhm.
Um and yeah, it was just like, but you only got to see phase two if you did phase one. Like
Yep.
it was so intense. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
That's definitely, like, the hard part. I really appreciated, but also, like, hated it as, like, as someone who was trying to get through it, it was, like, so infuriating, but
Yeah.
I also really appreciated, like, the entire construction of her battle is so fascinating because it's very, like, it's literally like, you win if you hit her and don't let her hit you more than you hit her because of
Right.
the life steal, which is so, it's, like, so simple, but it's so, so complicated
Yeah.
in practice in her battle because the whole lifesteal mechanic, I don't know, it really impressed me that, like, it was kind of like a simple implement, like,
Yeah.
it's like a little switch, but, like, it makes her so deadly. Like, she's already, like, pretty tough, but I feel like her lifesteal is definitely the thing that makes her
Well,
stand out, like, the most.
yeah, you basically have to kill her like 1.5 times at least,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
she probably gets half of a bar of healing off of you
Yes.
throughout that whole fight, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it works into the lore of her of like never losing a battle,
Yes.
because she could just like drain, you
Yeah.
know, drain her enemies of their life or whatever, right?
Mhm.
And so like lore wise, it's just a cool fight that they built.
Yes.
They built that mechanic kind of around that.
Mhm.
Um, and it's so funny, like, you know, people joke that anyone that's played a FromSoft game knows what like the Dark Souls greed is. When,
Yes.
you know,
Oh
you're
god, yeah.
like, we all know, we've all been slapped in the face with it and
Yes.
lost progress on a boss or whatever. And so I think it was like over 4 days, but it may have been 5 days, that I would just, because it was like during a work week. So it was like I'd get home
Oh.
and I was like,
Uh-huh.
all right, settle in. Like I just
Yep.
had my supper. It's Elden Ring time, until I just played it for like 4 hours trying this boss. And
Mhm.
there was one night where I was like, okay, let me, like, my weapons were at like plus 19 or something.
Mhm.
I was like, okay, I'm gonna go on like a couple side adventures and like get
Yeah.
materials, and so I got like the weapons that were working. I
Mhm.
leveled those all to like plus 25. So I had my
Oh, nice.
weapons maxed out.
Wow.
You know, I had, and just evidently, or I would get a couple levels worth, you know. I didn't respec. I refused. I was
Okay.
like, no, for me, it was like this spec worked for the whole
Yeah.
game. I can make it work
Mhm.
for this fight. I just have to
Yeah.
like get better at it or whatever, right?
Mhm.
Um, so you know, by like the fifth or sixth day or whatever, it's like I was consistently getting to phase two. Like I was
Oh,
starting to
good.
get there every time. So I was like,
Mhm.
okay. It was like my friend wasn't on that was watching me because he was working, and my other friend who, you know, was helping me through the game. He's from Australia, so his time
Oh,
zone
okay.
is crazy,
Mhm.
for, you know, matching with his. So I was like, neither of them are here. I was like, I'm just gonna record it because I feel
Yeah.
like I got it tonight. Like I
Yeah.
feel like I can do it. And so I had like a 2 hour recording
Mhm.
of like attempts, and then I ended
You did
up
get it?
getting it that night. Yeah, so I could send
Nice.
them the video, and like, just because you weren't there the last night, and it
Yes.
was like the reason I brought up the Dark Souls greed is like I'm so glad I didn't see how long she had no health left in phase
Yeah.
two, because I hit her and she didn't die, and I was like, when I was looking at the video, like I couldn't see the red in her health bar. She was empty,
Oh
and
my god.
if I had seen that, I would be like, oh, just hit her with
Yeah,
something.
just one more hit.
Yeah,
Yep.
and it's like I think I knew she was low because I could kind of
Yeah.
see, my
Yeah,
peripheral.
in the
Like,
periphery, yeah.
yeah, so I knew she was low, but like I had no heals left, I think,
Yeah.
and I was like, one
Oh man,
hit.
down to the wire.
Yeah, and it was like
Oh,
she did a couple moves, and I think I even swung once and missed,
oh
but then
god.
she did the move where she goes up and summons, and that one gets
Oh,
me. And you could like if you could if you see my rolling, like you
yeah.
can
You got a
feel
little
my
panic.
panic. Yeah.
I love that.
It's like the
Oh,
definition of a panic roll. You can
yeah.
see me doing, and then I think when she does that move,
Hmm.
man, I don't even know if I got the hit after that because she goes pretty far. But I when I saw my opening, I like went in for like a jumping attack or whatever because it like
Nice.
reaches a little bit further. And
Mhm.
yeah, I was like, normally if I'm playing games by myself, I'm like a little like I'm more quiet. But if I'm
Yeah,
streaming with friends or friends watching me, like
yeah.
I'm more vocal. But even playing by myself, I'm just like get that last kill. I'm just like fuck yeah! It's just like screamed it.
Yeah.
It's just like that full body release when
Yeah.
after like 12 hours.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's really the emotions, like,
It's
if you happen to glance when you're, like, doing it and you, like, feel like this is the run,
yeah.
it's like your body just goes in a completely different like, you're so stressed, your heart rate's elevated, hands are so clammy, and you're like, "I can't" you're like, "I can't think about it too much, like, I gotta focus or I'm
Yeah.
not gonna get it, but I can get it, I could feel it," and then when you finally get it, it's just man, like,
No,
these games are so
nothing nothing beats it. Nothing beats that feeling. And
not at all.
it's like you can explain it to someone who doesn't play them all day, but like they don't
Yeah,
understand how insane it
it's
feels.
such a full body experience
Yeah,
when you
it really
finally
is.
push through something you've been chipping at for so long, seeing the, like, "you died" screen over and over
Yeah,
and over, like
yeah. Was it the like same like curved greatsword thing is that what you were using
I
on her as well?
yeah, I wound up, summoning Tish, who is, like, one of if not, like, I think she's, like, the 2nd highest tier, like, summon that you can have,
Okay.
um and she has some really useful stuff in her kit, like including capping off enemy HP so they can't recover like a certain amount.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So yeah, she was very useful. So there was like I was trying not to use her, but like there were some parts where I wasn't making much headway, so I would like bring her in to kind of like help learn like some of the moves a little
Yeah.
bit more. It was just like so stressful.
Yes.
Um but I think we had gotten into like a good I think when I finally got her, it was like I was getting a lot of stuns because I spent so much time in the beginning being so afraid of her. And it took me a while to like learn that if I just kept going and like hitting her, I would stun her, which would be
Yeah.
great.
Yes.
But I just had to balance that with like not being too greedy because I
Yeah.
couldn't keep stunning her. So
Yeah.
I would have to stun her and like do a good chunk of damage and then back off. So it
Yeah.
took me a while to learn that like
The
dance with her.
rhythm, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So and it just took a while for me to not, like, lose my marbles in phase 2 and get frazzled because she scared me so much going into phase 2 because,
Yeah.
like, her all her attacks were just, like, so much more explosive and, like,
And the
seeing the
Scarlet
raw farm
Rot.
yeah, it would
Yeah.
also stress me out because 'cause I'm like, "Oh my god, my health."
Yeah.
So,
And the items secured are limited, so it's like you can't just,
yes,
gobble
keep
those
using
up
them
every
yeah, because
time. Yeah. Ah,
Um,
God.
so it took a while, but, like, when I finally got her, I was like, "Oh my god." But then feeding her too was, like, also really sad because it was like once you beat her, you're so proud. But then, like, for me, I was also like, oh man, because I know, like, whatever at that point, I was like, okay, like, to me, she was kind of like the end game of Elden Ring, like, more so than like
Sure.
the final boss,
Yeah.
because it was like the final boss I struggled with a little bit as well, but like
Same.
I was like, there was no once you've defeated the greatest adversary, I was like, there's no rush like killing Melania for the
Y-
first time ever again.
Yeah, for sure. And it was like, and I was definitely told that she is the hardest boss in the
Yes.
game.
Yes.
Which is why I was also as stubborn as I was. Like, I'm not giving
Mhm.
up. Like, I'm beating this boss
Yeah.
because I need that, like, that bragging right, to
Yeah,
say that
that's
I
like a
did
rite
it.
of passage of
Yeah.
truly conquering Elden Ring.
And like the last boss, only it was only thing that made it hard was in how frustrating it was being a melee attacker.
Yes, oh my god, the amount of running that you have to do to, like, even
Yes.
hit the final boss was probably the most annoying part about that
Yeah.
entire last section.
So I think I got more angry and yelled more things during that fight just because it was like, well, I hit him once. Now I got to run 3 kilometers to go chase him down and hit him one more time in 6 minutes.
Exactly, and then run another,
Yeah. So, it was challenging in a different way, but the Melania fight it felt more like a one-on-one duel, and it's just the
yeah,
better person won,
mhm.
right?
A good tactical, like, challenge.
Technical, yeah, that's what I was looking for exactly, yeah. And yeah, God, and it was funny because like thank God I beat her on. I think it was like because I've been trying all week, and I'm pretty sure it was on like a Friday night
Oh, nice.
that I beat her because like there's no way I was going to bed. Like I had so much adrenaline. I
Oh,
like couldn't.
yeah,
There was
yeah,
no way I could go to bed because it was probably
yeah.
like 11 or 12 by that point, and
Mhm.
I work like a 8 a.m. Monday to Friday job, so I can't be going to
Yeah,
bed at like 2 a.m. And
yes.
yeah, it's a good thing it was on like a non-work night because yeah,
Mhm.
I had adrenaline pumping. There's no I was going
Yeah,
to
I
bed.
know that, your hands are all shaky.
Yeah.
"Oh, I did it!"
Yeah, yeah. So that worked out. And then you can buy her armor.
Yes.
And so I'm like, immediately, I was like, I didn't put all of it on because I think it made me like too heavy or something. But I definitely put like the helmet
The
on
helmet, yep.
because it's got those wings and you get her hair as part of it. And
Mhm.
I was like, yeah, I'm wearing this bitch's armor now. I was like, this is mine.
Yeah.
I got her weapon too, but I don't think I could use it yet because you need like 48 decks or something like that for it.
Oh, wow.
So in a new game, plus eventually
Yeah.
I'll build that up to try it. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, the rest was just oh, and there's like so where I had stopped when I went to go
Mhm.
look for her was when you're in that like tornado-y area in the
Oh,
middle.
yes. Yeah.
And I was like pretty early on in there, like maybe like one or two graces down.
Yeah.
And so then I went back after doing it. And this was also after I upgraded all my weapons and leveled up. So I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I just breezed through the majority of that area after that. I was like, I beat Melania. I can do this shit.
I heard, like, a lot of people had struggled with Malekith, who's the boss of that area, Farah Missoula. Um, he's
I'm trying
like
to remember what.
he's like, he was Garank,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
the,
Okay.
like, beast-looking
Yes.
guy.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
and yeah, I did not struggle with him. I was,
Yeah.
like, hoping some people said that he was, like, as hard as Melania, but I did not
It
have as much
definitely it wasn't not a one shot for me. Like I definitely had to try a few times and like learn his
same,
moves. But I
yeah.
did so much damage when I did hit him that yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't that bad.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Did you wind up fighting, I guess it's kind of like the secret boss in Farum Azula?
What
It's
is
it's, one of the ancient dragons. It's like a reference to King Ghidorah in a way. It's not quite like an eight-headed dragon, it's like a two or three-headed dragon.
I, I think I
It's
did.
you have to, like, go to, like, a bottom portion of Farum Azula, and there's, like a hole, not like a hole in the ground, but kinda like an indent where you, like, go up to it and you choose to, like, lay down, and then it,
Oh
like,
no then.
reverses time. Oh,
No.
You should go look that was a pretty fun boss fight.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I
I
didn't.
think I did
I
I
missed
think I
that
did
one.
that, like, after Millennia. Yeah, that one's a lot of fun. It's definitely very unique. That one also gave me a big, like, adrenaline rush fighting that
Okay,
because
sure.
it's, like, an entirely different I feel like it's one of those, like, end game dragons similar to I forget his name, but at the end of Dark Souls 3 I don't know if it's in the DLC. It's probably in the DLC. They also had, like, sort of a one of the late game dragon beast bosses you could fight, and I never beat it in, Dark Souls 3.
Uh, they're not the nameless king.
No,
No.
his name started with an M.
I don't know if I played the DLC for Dark Souls 3 now that I think of it.
Midir?
Hmm.
Yes, Dark Eater Midir.
Yeah, I don't think if it's part of the DLC, I don't think I did the DLC for Dark Souls 3. So I would
Yeah,
have missed that one.
he is in the DLC. He was tough. I never got to beat him, but
Okay.
some of these late game dragons are, like, so scary and so tough, but
I didn't
he was a
know
real cool
I
fight.
didn't know Elden Ring had one. I mean, I went into New Game Plus, so I can't just go and like
Yeah,
revisit it, but I'll probably work my way through it again.
yes,
Slowly but
definitely.
surely. But yeah, I've gone probably like 10 hours into the New Game Plus just
Oh,
because it is
nice.
pretty fun just like
Dumping
dummying
on
those
everything.
early
Yeah.
bosses.
Yeah, the ones that give you trouble and just coming back all, like, souped up from New Game Plus,
Yeah.
like, "Ah, yes, time to get my revenge."
Yeah, and like they're stronger too than the original encounters, because
Mhm.
you're New Game Plus, but everything
Yeah,
is also stronger, but you're just so much more stronger
yeah,
than everything.
yeah. Mhm.
So I've gone through some of that. One thing I actually really liked about their sort of design of a New Game Plus, because Dark Souls always have a good New Game Plus anyway.
Mhm.
But have you gone into New Game Plus at all on Elden Ring?
I have not.
So your entire map is still filled out,
Oh, nice.
but
Including
you don't have the grace
okay,
sites, so
okay,
you can't just teleport wherever you want to go. But
okay.
like all the points of interest and like locations and
Mhm.
castles and whatever, they're all on your map still.
That's
So you can
cool.
kind of chart your way a little easier.
Mhm.
Especially if you like hadn't played in a while and went back. But
Yeah.
that was a nice compromise. We're like, man, like
Mhm.
it it's kind of silly if it's New Game Plus and it's like, don't hide this stuff from me because I
Yeah,
know it's there. I just
yeah.
forget where the road is or whatever.
Mhm.
And so yeah, your whole map is visible. I don't think you can see the underground until you go underground, and then you
Okay.
can see it.
Mhm.
But yeah, you can see the whole map in New Game Plus, which is nice because like there were areas that I like. There's like that place right when you start. If you go like south, and there's like a
Yes.
castle. I didn't
Mhm.
even go. I didn't even uncover that area in my first playthrough.
Oh, really?
I didn't go there at all. So the New Game
That's
Plus, that was like the first thing I did. I just went, well, let me go actually explore this little peninsula or whatever.
that was, the place where I'd mentioned earlier, Castle Morin, that I just completely bypassed, and then when I finally
Oh,
went back to
that's okay.
yep, I was
Okay.
just completely overleveled, and then
Yeah.
I wound up revisiting that area, like, a 3rd time, and then I found because I went there at night, I found
Mm.
a boss that I found a couple bosses that I never ran into
Yeah,
because
that's true.
it's crazy because it's like, no matter how many hours you put into it, there's always something new to find, which is so cool. Like, even though I've, like, discovered I feel like most of the sites of grace, I've uncovered all the map, I've scoured so many areas,
Yeah.
there are still bosses to be found at night,
So
apparently.
I'm watching someone I follow Maximilian Dude on YouTube. I watch a lot of his stuff.
Mhm,
And I'm watching his playthrough of it. And
mhm.
I'm only on like part 5 and there's so many things he's seen that I'm like, I never saw that. Like, where's this boss? And it like makes me want to like start a brand new
Yeah,
playthrough and then go again. But that's why I've been just kind of, if I saw him go somewhere, I'm like, man, I never went there on my New Game Plus file. If I can get there, I'm like, oh, let me go get that item too because I missed that one. That's such a fun part about like watching other people's content
mhm,
about the game is there's so much shit in this game that like
yeah,
I thought I saw a lot of it, but I probably saw like 60% of what this game has. You know what I mean?
mhm, yeah,
Especially with some of those side quests and stuff, because yeah, I was so
mhm.
bad at following
It's
a
a lot.
majority of those.
I mean, it's hard because it's like you're also like you bump into an NPC and like when you have to find them again in an open world environment is
Yeah.
so tricky. And there was like one NPC who I completely forgot existed because I met him at the round table hold in the beginning. And then I just went about my game and then he disappeared and I was like, well, I don't know where he went. And then because he
Yeah.
disappeared, I just completely forgot about him. And it was before I started taking notes. And then my partner started playing Elden Ring
Yeah.
and I was watching him play, and then he like talks to this dude, and I was like, "Oh, I completely forgot about that guy. I wonder where he went." And then my partner went into this one area and then bumped into him, and I was like, "Wait, what?" And so like because I was like, I've been in that area, but like I didn't see him. Is he so I went there and I don't know what happened because he's just standing there, but I must have like went around him and missed him. You know, just didn't happen to pan my camera or didn't see him in the
Yeah.
background. He probably been there for like 60 game hours waiting for me to interact with him to progress his storyline. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And it's hard because it's like the world's so big, so it's really easy to miss people, but it's
Yes.
also like they're just there waiting for you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. When I got to the end, like when I was getting to the end and I was telling my friend that was sort of my guide that I'm here now, I'm pretty sure I'm close to beating it. He's like, yeah, he's like, I think he asked me if I did what's her name? Rani?
Ronnie.
I was like, I'm pretty sure I've done most of her quest line because I did a number of steps of it. And I think there was like one last step I had to go bring her doll somewhere or something. And because he told me like, oh well, you can probably get her ending pretty easily if you've done most of her quest. And he's like, yeah, you just got to like summon her at the end after you kill the boss. And I killed the boss, and I'm like, I don't see a sign anywhere. And he's like, did you go? You like marry her or something?
Yeah, it's like the process is like you take her doll like underground to like
Yes,
a
under some
bonfire
church.
to like will you like talk to her and then she like leaves the doll, but then you go like through this path and then you eventually like you find one of her old discarded doll bodies, I think, by her like two fingers.
Right.
And
Yes.
then that's where you get like the wedding ring. And
Yes.
then she basically is like, we're married
Yeah.
now. Have
Yeah.
put the ring on her old doll body. I don't really like know, but then she's like, okay, we're like married now, and we're gonna walk the path together.
Yeah. And it was
Yes.
like I had gone to that. It's like one of those like church locations, and the ground is all caved in. And I like looked down there, and I was like, "No, I'm not gonna." Like, it was like I don't want to try and navigate my way down this like weird
Yeah.
jumps and stuff. I was like, I looked at like, no, I'm not doing that. And then I went on, and he's like, when he was telling me, I was like, yeah, the sign's not here to summon her. He's like, did you marry her yet? I was like, I don't think so. And he's like, okay, there's a church with a up in such and such area, and you got to jump down this cave. And I was like, I know where that is because I remember specifically looking at that cave and being like, no. So I just like teleported there, went and did that quest, teleported back to the boss room, and her sign was there. So it's like I was worried that I like messed it up because I already finished the boss fight. But when I went back after I'd done the quest, her sign was there. So like, okay, I can get this ending, I guess. So
It's
yeah.
it's fairly forgiving compared to like other FromSoft
Yeah,
games because like
exactly. That's
they
why I was
launch
worried.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's nice that they give you a little bit more like breathing room and leeway to finish up things before you fully end the game.
Yeah. It's like, oh, you didn't talk to this NPC and take exactly 8 steps backwards and turn around and run left for 5 minutes
Yeah.
straight. Oh, you didn't pass the quest. Sorry. So yeah, it was way more forgiving than that. So that was the ending I got when I finished the game.
Nice.
But yeah, it was God, man, that game was so much fun. And I had told you when we were talking before setting this up that like FromSoft games is just like it's like my brother and I on this podcast, we just talk about a lot of the games that we play, and FromSoft is just a little bit of a blind spot for him. Like he just doesn't really play those games. And for a game this big, it's like I need to talk to somebody about it.
There's so much and it's so good.
Yeah. So I'm so happy that Because I think I just like casually mentioned in one of your streams that like, oh, I just finished Elden Ring, so I'm
Oh
chilling for the
my
night, and you went off on it. I was like, oh, this is exactly what I need.
yeah, it's because like the thing is too is like when I started Elden Ring, I was also like not into it. I was like, I don't know how we feel about Elden Ring.
Sure,
I
yeah.
know everyone's really into it, but I don't know. I was like just kind of like bopping around, exploring caves, and I was like, I wish there was like a little bit more like
Like structure or
yeah,
guiding. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
exactly that. Because like in the older games, because they were more linear, like I knew where I was going, but I kind of felt
Exactly.
like I was aimlessly wandering. But then when I started doing Bronny's questline, I was like, oh, okay, like I kind of have a bit more structure. This is what I needed. And
Yeah.
then I started really heavily interacting with the NPCs. And then by the end of the game, I was like, I'm so sad it's over. Like,
Yeah.
oh, there's so much because there's so much like symbolism and everything that was like woven into the storyline with the way that people interact and like I was doing all sorts of crazy stuff because it was like there was just like goofy things that were happening where like I was trying to make my way to like the lift to go to the mountaintop of the giants past
Yeah.
Langdell,
Yeah.
but I didn't realize that you could go to that doorway in Langdell and just open it. I thought that you had to go somewhere else. You know, like
Okay.
on the main street, you just open the door and you go up the steps to the elevator.
Yeah.
I thought you had to go somewhere else. So like I went into the sewers and was like, maybe I go under the sewers and come out somewhere else.
Yep.
So I'm like traveling, I go deep under the sewers. I like fought some strange boss,
Yeah.
and then I get all the way down and they're like, there's
Here's
the
your
heathen.
teleport point to go up or something.
Well, but, like, I kept going, and then it was like I discovered like this hidden like tomb and all this stuff, and then it was like I eventually discovered like where they sealed the like third heathen god of the frenzied flame, and I was like, I'm just trying to get to an elevator, and you're telling me I discovered this like sealed god, the three fingers, like just like blew my mind. But I like loved it because I was like, man, how did I was it just took me a while to get into it, but it was just it's so fun how open it is because you can just stumble upon like the
Yeah,
wildest stuff. And it makes for
exactly.
a great story to tell other people too, because like
Yes.
everyone chooses a different path.
Yep.
So not everyone experiences the like singularly same playthrough, but like it's the same world. So it's really fun to like talk with other people who are just as enthusiastic about Elden Ring as I am because like everyone has their own like unique experiences in ways that they've overcome the same trials. So
Yeah, and just like it's just got that perfect. And like I know Breath of the Wild talked like their devs of that talked about this where they made their landscape very like hilly, like up and down, because it made it easier to like, oh, what's over on that thing, and by the time you get there, you can see more stuff now, and like, oh, what's that thing, and then you go there, like, oh, what's that stuff, and I feel like this game does a good job at like building out geographically its world so that it's
Mhm.
like you can't just see everything immediately. Like you can
Yeah.
see a lot, but
Mhm.
as it sort of teases you with stuff closer to you
Yeah.
that will draw you that way, and then you're like, oh, like you do, like you said, find some random dungeon like 3 hours
Yeah.
later, like man,
Mhm.
what was I doing again? And you try to
Yep.
go and like retread what you were doing, then like, oh wait, what's that though, what's that thing over
Uh-huh.
there, and and it's just like, yeah, it's something that I got to imagine it's so hard to do, to design a
Mhm.
game that fuels that, like
Yeah.
like what's the word, like naturally, like it doesn't force
Mhm.
you to, it's
Yes.
like go explore 10 locations and then you can complete this quest. It
Mhm.
like very naturally, you're just like so curious because of what
Yes.
it's presenting you, that you want
Mhm.
to do that exploring. You're not doing it
Yeah.
because you're trying to check off a quest,
Yes.
objective or whatever.
Yes.
So I got to imagine it cannot be easy to do.
Yeah.
But man, when a game does it right,
Yeah.
and I feel like, because my brother loves those types, he loves open world games, and so like
Oh.
if any game from soft game would get him, it'd be this. But
Mhm.
I don't think he likes the combat. I don't think he likes the
Oh,
I don't think he
no.
likes the brutal challenge of FromSoft
I
games as
see.
much as is. And I think maybe if he got that first like
Mhm.
that that first boss wall that
Yeah,
you overcome, I feel like that would be
that would hook
it might
'em.
hook him. But he also just doesn't have nearly as much time as I do for games because he's very very busy all the time. So I can understand not wanting to spend 6 hours on a boss if you only have
Yeah.
10 hours this week to play games.
Mhm.
So
Understandable.
I'll
Yeah.
never hold it against them, but that gives me opportunities to invite someone like you on so we can just gush about this game for like 2 hours. So yeah, that's I think that's about all I wanted to cover about Elden Ring. I know we could talk about more, but I feel like that is a good sort of encapsulates our experience, and it is like it's exactly what I needed to like gush about all this stuff because the one guy at work that plays it, he's really early on in it, or at least
Oh,
he
okay.
hasn't progressed very far. So I had to be careful. It's like
Yeah.
if he'd asked me where
Spoiled
I'm at, I'm like,
free.
well, I went this direction. Have you been there?
Yeah,
It's like I don't think so. I was like, okay, never mind.
yeah. That's all I'm gonna say. Never mind,
Yeah,
didn't hear you.
yeah. So yeah, it's nice to go full,
Yeah.
spoilers on the table and just talk about the game. So yeah, I'm glad I could get that off my chest. Um,
Yeah.
so I think we're okay to we can pretty much call it there for that discussion. What so I know we talked about your streaming your 4 or 5 days a week. You're
Mhm.
working on Disco Elysium, I think, Yakuza 4, Danganronpa 3 or V3. I don't know if that means it's the third game. Okay.
It is the third
uh
game, yeah.
and I think were playing Pokemon Scarlet the other day I saw.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And so what days do you stream again, just so anyone watching can
Um,
find you?
so Mondays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, for
Hmm.
sure. Um, Eastern time, I usually start between 6 and 7 Eastern time. I'm
Yeah.
not always at 6 on the dot, but I
Yeah.
start usually around those times. I've also begun occasionally doing surprise streams
Yeah, you were
on
doing some 14 catch up the other day.
yeah, yeah. So I stream a little bit of 14. I might stream a little bit of working on cosplay on Tuesdays and Wednesdays if I have the time and energy to do so as
Oh,
well.
okay. Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
that'd be interesting to see too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll put all your info in the description below. So if anyone wants to follow you, check out some of your cosplays and hang out in your Twitch,
Yeah.
I'll make sure we give them all that info. I feel like there was one other thing I wanted to say. No, that's just all Elden Ring notes. I think we covered it. Yeah, thanks, Stephanie, so much for coming on the podcast. This was really great. And we will 100% have a follow up Critical Role episode
Yes, I would
because I
love
could easily talk about that for 2 hours with you as well.
yes,
Uh,
same.
I think maybe we talked about possibly when the next season of Vox Machina
Yeah,
comes out. Maybe we can
yes.
do like a post season
That would be
episode
great.
and
Yeah.
chat about it then.
Yeah,
Yeah, because Critical Role is a very important part of my life, and you've told me the same for you.
very much
So
same, yes.
there's no way I could have crammed a small portion of that into this episode. I want to do
No!
it justice. So yeah. Okay. Thanks everyone for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on all the socials. Check out Stephanie's content as well. I'll give you guys all the links. Thanks again so much, Stephanie. This was super, super fun. And yeah, catch us on the next one, guys. Thanks for watching.